Welcome, and thank you for being here. I'm Emmanuel Moreno, Vice President of the Coalition. This is the recorded session of our June 2025 conference, and we hope you find it insightful. We'd also like to invite you to join us in San Diego for our June 2026 conference. We believe it will be an incredible opportunity for collaboration, learning, and growth. For more details, or if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me directly at my email. Let's begin by introducing our president, Joseph Lucido. Joe is an accomplished design professional, educator, and program leader with over 25 years of experience in architecture, sustainable design, and real estate development. His diverse project portfolio spans California, Oregon, and Florida, encompassing educational facilities, industrial complexes, mixed-use commercial developments, multi-unit housing, and custom single-family residences. With expertise in conceptual design, construction administration, client development, and team leadership, Joseph brings a well-rounded and forward-thinking approach to the built environment. He currently serves as department chair for both the architecture and design and manufacturing programs at Palomar College. In this capacity, he led the development of Palomar's first ever baccalaureate degree, the Bachelor of Science in Building Performance and Environmental Design, positioning the college at the forefront of sustainable and interdisciplinary design education. Joseph is also the president of the Coalition of Community College Architecture Programs, or CCAP, and a proud collaborator with NCARB Workforce Readiness and Education Committees, where he continues to advocate for student pathways, licensure readiness, and equitable access to the architectural profession. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our president, Joe Lucido.
Thanks everybody for attending our 2025 conference, Reimagining Architecture, Empowering the Next Generation of Students. Once again, as Manuel mentioned, my name is Joe Lucido. I'm the president of the Coalition of Community College Architectural Programs. A lot has happened over the past year with our organizations and our partner organizations, and we look forward to bringing us up to speed. Just a little bit about us. Those of you who aren't familiar with CCAP and are just joining us for the first time, CCAP is a non-for-profit organization dedicated to empowering alternative routes to architectural education. We represent 165 community colleges across the country that are offering an associate's degree in architecture. We are totally a volunteer-based organization, and we work together because we care about our programs, our students, and our graduates. And we strive to support our fellow faculty members and our administrators. So why Boston to Zoom? Okay, so a little bit about this. I figured we should kind of address the elephant in the room. As many of you are aware, we have planned to host an in-conference session in Boston with the alignment, of course, the AIA convention. However, as the event drew near, we received feedback from our members that many of our programs were facing financial difficulties due to administrative and political changes that are currently affecting many academic institutions. Recognizing the importance of inclusivity, the board elected to transition this conference to a virtual environment. This change will ensure all of our members have equal access to the event, and furthermore, the board decided to make this conference for free, eliminating any barriers. So I want to express my deepest gratitude to our board for making this last-minute shift, and I want to thank you guys for kind of coming along for the ride. Now that you know why we did this, you can kind of see it was really out of an effort to bring everybody together. But for those of you who are in Boston, we do have our reporter on the scene. Emmanuel is out in Boston right now. So if you're out there and you want to grab him, I have his email on the slide as well as in the chat. So by all means, you can talk to Emmanuel, buy him a pint. So with that, as I said before, and I've said this, I think it still rings true. Architectural education is described in many ways, a passion, a calling, and an art form. But I like to think of architectural education as a journey. Again, from here, we take our first steps, and I would like to acknowledge some of our amazing partners along the way. Of course, NCARB, the ACSA, AIA, and SARA. I'm excited that these organizations and CCAP representatives are shedding lights on new pathways for all. A little bit about our demographics as a whole, just so we understand, 43.7% of undergraduate students will start at a community college. That number is steadily on the rise over the years. And I also want us to understand that our demographics are different than our university partners. Whereas 60% are 24 years and younger, 40% are 25 years and older. And I'm excited about this demographic shift because what it's showing us is that we have more people coming into architecture at different points in their lives. And architectural education will slowly become a la carte and won't just solely stem from the university direction, but really from our community colleges, our university partners, and our education and experience committees. As we move forward, one of the things our institution wanted to do was start to align with NCARB. So as you can see here, we started to organize our nationwide representation into regions, similar to what NCARB has. And we did that because we provide many things that our university partners may not actually offer. So of course, we offer our associate's degree, but we also have certificate programs, transfer pathways, workforce training, continuing education, adult learning, dual enrollment, and flexible learning options. This is what makes you special. This is what makes our curriculum unique. So by aligning ourselves with this, we can provide NCARB and our regional partners a workforce that's ready to take part in the architectural environment. The other thing I do want to mention is we have a fork in the road for many of our students. Because of our institutions provide career technical education, our students are fortunate to have an opportunity of choice and move to a university or continue on to education. And because the educational landscape is changing, we'll find many of our students cycling between both industry and university, defining their own educational experience at will. As a result, we must strengthen both pathways and start to explore how we can build stronger networks with our university and industry partners. Of course, as we develop our organization, we like to think of this duality that strengthens our curriculum. We believe that workforce readiness is university readiness, and they go hand in hand. Developing a student that is capable of choosing a pathway and define their own architectural experience. And as I mentioned before, it's with our education partners that we can provide this unique duality in our pathway. In summary, I just kind of wanted to show you how large our breadth is getting. Our organization is growing, actually. And I love this map because we can see kind of a sense of where we're located. Even as far as our Joel up in Alaska. So we're everywhere, and we're glad that you're part of our organization. But now comes our ask. As we grow, we need a little bit more support. As I mentioned, we're a volunteer organization, and we can't accomplish all of this alone. We need numerous positions that are open. So when looking for more board members in this upcoming year, we're looking for additional committee members in this year. As we start to explore our regional leads, we're going to need regional people, maybe people from Michigan, maybe people from New Jersey, whoever's out there, definitely some people from San Diego to help us spearhead these regional initiatives. And of course, one thing I really want to provide is our student membership. So you'll hear me say that today is I really want to get our students involved in becoming members of CCAP. One of the things my students often tell me is that they just don't know if they belong. And that's fair. And CCAP is that first stepping stone for them to be in that professional organization, right? So they can feel like they are involved and they can be part of something larger than themselves. So with that, I want to say thank you very much for your attendance. Thanks for letting us switch to this virtual environment. We're going to have a fun afternoon with a lot of informative discussions, and I'll turn it back over to Emmanuel.
Wonderful welcome. Thank you, Joe. I am excited to introduce our keynote speaker. She grew up in a small college town on the edge of Alabama's Black Belt, where her love for place was shaped by barefoot summers, bike rides through farmlands, and the quiet dignity of aging Greek Revival architecture. With an architect father who led with humor and purpose, and a mother who taught history before becoming a librarian and animal advocate, she learned early that leadership could be both principled and compassionate. At Auburn's Rural Studio, she studied under the late Samuel Mockbee, where she embraced design as a tool for social good. Her education and professional journey, from community-focused work in Alabama to leading complex lab construction with Raphael Vignoli architects in New York and San Francisco, deepened her commitment to designing systems of care, equity, and engagement. Her approach to practice blends policy analysis, cultural awareness, and design leadership to challenge injustice and nurture more collaborative processes. As an educator, she uplifts non-traditional students, those balancing work, family, and life beyond academia, helping them to connect their purpose and define success on their own terms. Through both her teaching and practice, she is rewriting the narrative of architectural education and leadership to be more inclusive, reflective, and impact-driven. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Dean Bethany Lundell-Garver.
All right, thank you so much. I would like to begin with what keeps me up at night and what keeps me going. We are facing a collision of crises and challenges, and a rare opportunity. There is urgent demand for bold, resilient thinkers and leaders, for clean energy architects, climate justice technicians and builders, for minds that can hold complexity, ambiguity, and beauty all at once, for people who can deconstruct and rebuild, for designers of the future who are not afraid of the mess, the material, the reassembly, the in-between. And yet, we do not have nearly enough supply. And the supply that we do have does not reflect the society that we claim to serve. This is the big problem, and we need to name it clearly. Some still believe that community colleges offer less rigorous education than four-year institutions or professional programs. This belief is not only outdated, it's inaccurate. It ignores the caliber of faculty, often licensed practitioners with deep industry expertise, and in many cases, more licensed architects than found in traditional architecture programs. That belief ignores the time, financial, and emotional pressures that community college students navigate daily, demonstrating resilience, adaptability, and focus. These are not soft skills. They are the future-proof qualities our profession needs most. That belief ignores the evidence that many community college transfer students go on to outperform their peers, despite facing cultural dissonance, feelings of otherness, and systems that were never designed with them in mind. And here's what I believe. Community colleges are not the problem. Community colleges are the prototype. You are nimble, grounded in values. You make a lot out of very little, not from a scarcity mindset, but from an asset-based one. You stay focused on students, not rankings, reputations, or performance metrics. While others may be pulled toward prestige, you stay rooted in purpose. Community colleges educate nearly half of all undergraduate students in the United States. You offer the most affordable tuition in higher education. You serve the majority of students who are working while going to school, often while caregiving, commuting, or navigating systemic barriers. Community colleges are grounded in community, in workforce realities, in human potential. You are closer to the learner, closer to the context, closer to the communities that need design most. This is the era of the community college. This is your time. If four-year institutions and professional programs don't finish, of which I'm one, don't finish the construction of the transfer bridge now, if we don't dedicate the policies, resources, and relationships to make this pathway seamless, then we are choosing stratification over collaboration. We are upholding a myth that we care about access, myriad lived experiences and perspectives, that we care about affordability, while continuing to reward privilege, prestige, hierarchy, and performative excellence. And in doing so, we are bleeding out architecture's greatest promise, that we are the ones who can think across constraints, who make beauty from rubble, who know how to collaborate across disciplines, timelines, and uncertainty. If we can't model that in education, we are not preparing the profession for the future. The contradiction is clear, and so this is the opportunity. Oh, I got my annotate here. Well, this is like my Zoom. Sorry, just noticing this little guy moving it. I can't move it. Okay. I didn't come from an elite pipeline. I came from a family who climbed the scaffolding of education one rung at a time. My mother, Linda Lundell, started at Dutchess Community College. She transferred to Vassar, earned 2 graduate degrees, one while raising us kids, and spent decades teaching in public high school in Alabama. My father, Clark Lundell, began his architectural practice at Orange County Community College, OC. After serving 4 years in the Navy, the GI Bill enabled him to complete his studies at OC and transfer to Texas A&M, where he earned a Bachelor's of Environmental Design and a Master of Architecture degree. He became a career architect, president of the Alabama Council AIA, an educator, a professor of architecture, and the head of the School of Industrial and Graphic Design at Auburn University. Dad, who just turned 80, remains close friends with Professor Conrad Van Appen, a licensed architect and his mentor from OC. Conrad, whom we lovingly call Vaughn, is now in his 90s, and he and his family remain part of mine. He attended my wedding. I just saw him over Easter weekend, and that's despite the fact that I live in Boston, he's in New York, and my parents in Alabama. These paths weren't perfect, but they were powerful, and they were possible because somebody built a bridge. I'm joining you for Boston, a city redefined by infrastructure. If you've ever driven through it or under it, you've passed through the Central Artery development, also known as the Big Dig. This effort was the most expensive and ambitious federally funded infrastructure project in US history. It took over 20 years, disrupted daily life, and ultimately reconnected neighborhoods that had been severed by elevated highways. It turned scars into civic life and civic space. And that's the work we aim to do at Boston Architectural College. At the BAC, my home institution, we carry that spirit of reconstruction forward. We cherish our community college transfer students. They remind us that talent is everywhere, but opportunity must be designed. As my colleague, Dean Karen Nelson, reflects, We aim to teach design studio and design courses with a growth mindset. Not yet. And with kindness that was not baked into our own collegiate and graduate school experiences. At the Boston Architectural College and in your institutions across the country, we are already building the bridge, piece by piece. Rubrics that value lived experience, faculty to firm partnerships that link learning to practice, one-on-one mentorship that tracks real goals over time, placement models that assess potential, not polish, micro courses, asynchronous reviews tied to real-world performance. These aren't splashy solutions, but they are strong and they are working. In construction, molds, formwork, shape materials like concrete, or in some cases, like the Sanders Dudley Rural Studio House, rammed earth. This is a project I worked on in 2000. I'm in the picture on the right with a little dog sitting in the opening. Formwork and molds are efficient, but only when conditions match assumptions. That's the pain point. Our educational mold was built for a single student profile. Financially dependent, with little to no work or caregiving responsibilities, and full-time. Following a straight and long path to licensure. For me, it was 13 years. But that excludes most of today's students, the majority of whom are working, enrolled part-time, or caregiving while attending college. You are the bridge builders. You already know students are more than transcripts, that potential is much more than polish. You are designing possibility where others see limits. So let's stop trying to perfect the perfect mold. Let's build the next section of the bridge with honor for the labor of learning, respect for nonlinear paths, joy and collaborative construction. Students are already crossing. The question is, will we, 4-year and professional programs, meet them there? Let me offer a framework, a construction document for this moment, a simple, straightforward guide for 4-year and professional programs. Let's build with belonging, making space for students who've never felt seen, fostering studio culture rooted in mentorship and care. Let's invest in infrastructure, hiring coordinators, update articulation agreements, fund pathways like they matter because they do. Let's grow beyond GPA, assessing what really matters, which is persistence, communication, and systems thinking. Filling gaps with on-ramps, micro courses, not punishments. Let's design for disruption, accepting that the future is uncertain, design curricula that flex, recognizing learning can happen anywhere. Architecture in particular, as we all know, is prone to legacy myths, the lone genius, the elite studio critic, the best design schools. Community colleges disrupt this narrative, and that's exactly what makes you the solution. Let's integrate practice and learning, merging classroom and career, facilitating joint reviews across colleges and firms. And let's gather data that honors the journey. I think this is the biggest thing we have to do. We need to track who thrives, track who stays, who leads, and use that data to demand change. This is our big dig, because like Boston's big dig, this is infrastructure work. It's long-term, it's messy, and it's transformative. So before I close, I want to thank the president and board of the Coalition of Community College Architecture Programs, for creating this space of shared purpose. I want to thank Randy for her leadership and how you lift the potential of every student and educator in our network. CCCAP, your work really matters. Please note that in me, you have a lifelong advocate. To the Association of Collegiate Schools of Architecture, thank you for prioritizing community college pathways with the transfer toolkit, which I had the honor of co-authoring with many of you here. And to NCARB, thank you for shifting the national conversation toward competency-oriented education. I've shared some stories, a few metaphors, and a framework, but I know the real work is already happening in this room. So before I close, I want to ask you, where are you already building the bridge? What's missing that would help you finish it? And who else out there needs to walk across it? We are architects of systems, of space, of stories. We cannot keep saying we value access if we continue to design around exclusion. We cannot talk about equity and climate justice and resilience unless our schools are built on the same principles. The leap of faith still exists, but it doesn't have to. Together, we can finish the bridge. So let's stop refining the mold and start building the bridge that was always, always meant to carry more. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. That was wonderful. Joe, back to you.
All right, helps to unmute myself. Bethany, those are wonderful words. Thank you so much for leading us off. It's amazing. Your commitment is really felt throughout all of our organization, because we utilize schools like the BAC as great examples of transfer alignment, an understanding of where our students can get placed, and kind of an understanding of our academic rigor in conjunction with your school's goals. So that's why we asked you here today, and I can't thank you enough for all of your support. So I'll continue on a little bit here. Let me share my screen. All right. So in our next steps, I'd like to walk you through some of the exciting things that we're doing, some of the organizations that we belong to that are moving forward, and kind of start laying out some of the additional conversations that will be had later on post our break. First off, as Bethany mentioned, there's the ACSA Transfer Toolkit, which I think is an amazing tool. For some of our new members out there, take an opportunity to look at it. In the chat, I put our slides, and in the slides, you'll see on the lower left-hand side, there's a link directly to this toolkit. It's a good tool for us to understand how our students can get placed within their schools and surrounding communities. But I don't think we're done. So today I'm going to lay out a challenge. I want to see the success of this toolkit grow beyond just that box, just that PDF. I would love to challenge our organizational members and our own groups here to start to look at portfolio transfer as a uniformed object as well. Right now, I've said this in multiple presentations, we have students trying to transfer into multiple schools, building multiple portfolios, all in their spring semester while they're keeping up their grades and they're working part-time. With the success of the ACSA Transfer Toolkit, we can utilize that same framework to look at our portfolios. With all this technology out there, why can't students start to provide digital portfolios in which our accepting schools can start to look at? We can kind of get rid of this idea of an abridged portfolio, because now we have all these other resources that our students can lean towards. So as a group, as an organization, and as our member organizations, how do we take the next step forwards into streamlining this? What happens if one day our transfer student, it's almost like the NFL draft, in which on a space, there's all of these wonderful students, and schools like the BAC can go online and say, I want that student, or I've got scholarship money for that student, or my enrollment needs more students. What happens if this whole paradigm shifts together? I also have an exciting announcement. We've teamed up with the organization SARA. Architects Helping Architects. And what they wanted to do, because they're really excited and they believe in the cause of these additional pathways, is they're going to provide our students to take part in their National Design Award. I'm very excited because CCAP and SARA both have a similar goal, just like the AIA, which is getting more people on board with both architecture and then, of course, on to licensure. So this is going to be about a $2,000 cash prize available to your students right now when they submit their work to the SARA national competition. Here's the great thing, because CCAP was involved, we got all of the application fees completely waived for your students. So there's not even a reason for them not to apply. Plus, working with the SARA president, Fabian, we've got all of our students here at our local community college free SARA memberships. So they get to take part in a national award. They get free applications plus free membership. Then at the event, what's going to happen is when the awards are going to be given, the students will be flown out on SARA, both flight and hotel, and they'll be at Washington, D.C. to receive their award and their cash prize. The great thing about this award is it's going to be a jury of their peers. These are successful architects who took untraditional pathways to licensure. So people like our former president, John Baker, will be involved reviewing the projects as well. Once again, so our students can see this whole loop of opportunity. They started off on a pathway, and now they're going to go ahead and get national recognition. It's opened up right now as May the 1st was the kickoff. Our applications are going to be due by August the 8th. And then, of course, the award is going to be given on November the 15th. So please write down the email address here. I'll put it over here. If you're looking for it, it's SARA, Architects Helping Architects. Here's the national award. Get our students' projects in there. I want to see them out in Washington, D.C. I'll be giving away the cash prize on stage as well. So I'd love to be able to meet some of your students in the process. Other exciting things that are happening now, Josh and Jared, I'm going to go ahead and tee you up for later on this afternoon. So hopefully I don't steal too much of your thunder, but I've got some amazing, exciting news, and I want to commend NCARB for this work. Right now, the IPAL process is actually starting to be widened. These lanes are getting larger. So what's exciting is IPAL, the Education, Experience, and Examination Pathways, is now going to, for the first time, starting July the 1st, allow two-year community college programs with an articulation agreement into a NAB-accredited program. They're beginning their IPAL path through that process. To me, this is a game changer. I know Josh and Jared are going to expand upon this, but for my students, IPAL was an integral part to the thing that they wanted, that action that made them part of the community. And by the fact that this is now opened up, I'm sure you're going to get flooded with a lot of questions at your symposium afterwards. Just to reiterate, there are 33 NAB-accredited programs at 28 schools across the country. So if you are in a state and you do have a transfer agreement, ensure that that program has a NAB-accredited program within it, whether it's going on to a bachelor's degree or going on to a master's, and we can start to build that pipeline through. If you're looking for additional information, of course, we'll have Josh and Jared in our breakout rooms. But there's also an online portal. You can go to ipal@ncarb.org to start to fill out the paperwork as that comes forward. I know Manuel and I are going to test it out ourselves. So as we test out this pathway, we're going to report back to our members how smooth it was to both join and what was the process it takes to go ahead and get this through. Other exciting news that came from NCARB that I want to reiterate was the Workforce Readiness Report in August 2024. Those were the 52 KSA's knowledge, skills, and abilities for the entry-level employee into an office. So why is that so important for our members? As I mentioned in the beginning, we have this opportunity of choice for our students. Do they go on to a university or do they go directly into industry? My team is using these 52 KSAs as a tool to make sure our pathway into industry is clear, concise, and ready for them to succeed. We're using these KSAs as ways to make sure that our portfolios match what industry wants. In fact, we've even started to allow our students to make technically driven construction document portfolios that match these KSAs and highlight what they've learned within that construction document set. If our students don't go on to our university partners and they do go into an office, they'll be able to give them a functioning set of construction drawings that highlight these 52 KSAs, set in stone from where NCARB thinks our national membership should be at. To a student who is interviewing for the first time, that's a game changer. Because now what they're going to do is they're going to go into that potential first role as a BIM coordinator, what we used to call draftsman, and really be able to showcase their work. So I highly recommend that you take the opportunity to look at these 52 KSAs and evaluate your own program for that pathway leading directly into industry. Of course, there's the 16 competencies, which I know the team here is going to dive into great depths. These 16 competencies are divided into 3 buckets: design documentation, construction administration, and practice and project management. Now, I won't go into depth into each one of these, because I'm sure the team at NCARB will be able to speak in greater depths into it. But what I want you to know as a CCAP member is that we are ready to take on this challenge. In fact, I know for a fact that you teach many of these competencies. The question is to what level, and we'll talk about that a little bit later in this presentation. But I want you to be assured that we at CCAP see these competencies, and we also can understand your curriculum and the success that you're having in your own programs. We can look at competencies such as the design documentation. Folks, this is our jam. We should be able to succeed in getting our students ready for design documentation competency. So what will that look like in the future? Well, we'll talk about that with the Education Committee as these develop further on. But I know within these, assessing regulatory design requirements, I know, Robert, I know your program does that well, just like Charlie's at Sinclair College, just like Emmanuel's program. So we can see that within some of these, our programs succeed. And where Robert's program succeeds and Emmanuel's program succeeds, we as an organization can look to their programs to find out how our programs can become better tooled to match that competency. Here, under construction administration, there's a lot of conversation of, can we teach this in an academic environment? Well, it's interesting that conversation's happening in a lot of areas as well. This is where our programs at our local colleges can be flexible. I know a lot of us have advisory committee meetings with our industry partners. We at Palomar started introducing teaching firms to help build these competencies. A teaching firm isn't just a firm that randomly takes internships, but it's a firm that has an academic curriculum and a rubric that they need to follow in order to deliver appropriate content. So how does CCAP support you in developing these competencies? And of course, the third bucket is practice and project management. Here again, I believe our community colleges can shine. Now, we may not hit all of the competencies, but I know for a fact we can dive into a great deal of these, right? Executing contracts for professional services may be a challenge, but how far can we drive into these contracts? When we introduce a studio project, can we bring a contract along for the ride? Can we start to expose students to contracts earlier throughout their whole academic environment? That's our goal at CCAP, is to look at these competencies in conjunction with NCARB to say, how can we introduce these and lace these into our 2 years of education, and to how do we bring these embedded into our curriculum? I was fortunate enough to be on the Education Committee as these competencies are being developed. And what's nice is your representative on the Education Committee, I can report back to you. One of the things we were challenged with is which competencies can even be taught in an academic environment. Here you'll see we've actually presented our information, each one of these competencies, both what we evaluated and then what the board evaluated. And I believe Ed is here from NCARB as well. But even the board was kind of not sure of how these competencies are going to be met in an academic environment. As the Education Committee member, we found out that after a lot of research and after a lot of dialogue, that the first bucket of information, such as design and documentation, really could be taught within a classroom, which means you out there working, this is in your wheelhouse. We as an organization can work together to figure out how do we dial in this competency and to get as much as possible out of it. Here on the Education Committee, we looked at construction administration. Now, even in that, we weren't sure what could be hit within today's curriculum. But on the education committee, a lot of us believed if we're reevaluating architectural education, why couldn't we reevaluate how our classes are positioned, utilizing objects like teaching firms and utilizing coordination like our advisory committees. So there's an opportunity. As an education committee, we hit partially on this particular bucket. But I know with our local community college partners, we can see how far we can push it. And again, the last bucket the education committee looked at was practice and project management. Now here, both the education committee and the board were split in a lot of ways. The education committee felt that we could really hit the majority of these with one little asterisk. And in number 12, implement a work plan according to project scope, we found that one to be challenging. So you can see, even within our own body, there's people that believe that we could hit some of these, and there's some of our own body that believes people that couldn't hit these, or programs that couldn't hit these. Our job as a CCAP member is to look at all of these and see what you are planning to tackle and how we can support you as we take on these new competencies. So if you'd like to find out more about what the Education Committee has done in conjunction with the ACSA and NCARB, by all means, you'll be able to go download our slideshow. Here you'll see the 2025 Convening of Architectural Education and Competency for Licensure. This was just had last week, so the videos are fresh. They have that new video smell. You can go through all of them and you can basically learn more about the competencies, the transfer toolkit, the portfolios that are trying to be aligned, plus NCARB's positioning on what's happening in the future. By all means, all you need to do is log in and, of course, mention the school that you're with, and everything's available for you. Next steps. Well, I'm really proud to announce that I'll be continuing my work with the Education Committee through 2026. So hopefully, as we start to look at not only what is competent, but what is the competence for beginning practitioner and what is competency for post-practitioner, the Education Committee is going to be involved in this. And hopefully, as your representative, I'll be in these meetings, helping shape these, helping inform our NCARB members about what we can do at our local colleges. Lastly, I'd like to end it with this. As competencies take root, CCAP is dedicated to providing curriculum development. One thing I noticed when I took over my program is I was not a trained educator. I was trained in architecture, trained by architects, but never did I actually have a moment to sit down with somebody who had a master's of education and actually learned how to teach scaffolding, rubrics, goals, flipped classroom, getting off the stage on the stage and getting it more to practice-like curriculum. So CCAP is dedicated, as these competencies take hold, to provide you a space to talk to educators who are trained in education. Not architects, but solely educators. And as these competencies need to challenge how we teach, you'll need a place to have a sounding board. So today, in one of our breakout rooms, we're going to provide you our first teaching competencies with educators to allow you to talk to additional education experts to say, now, I rely on the ABC type of output. But with competencies, I need to stress maybe the ABC isn't important, but maybe it's how do I showcase what I've learned as a student? And as an educator, how do I grade that? How do I show my administrators that they're actually doing an A-level work? So we're going to be providing different teachers in different environments. So in this breakout session, you'll have your first chance to meet these educators. When we host our San Diego conference, hopefully we'll have a roundtable in which we'll start looking at individual buckets just so we can start to look at, as a collective, where do we hit in these buckets. So again, thank you very much for your time. Hopefully you feel a little bit ready for what's coming up. Hopefully you feel that you're informed. Of course, we're always here to support you and your needs as you develop your curriculum. And with that, Emmanuel, I'll turn it over to you for a small break.
Thank you, Joe. And Beth, I'd like to thank you again for that wonderful keynote. It was very inspiring. Thank you all so much for joining us. This has been a fantastic morning, and I'm looking forward to the afternoon.
Thank you very much. Thank you. And after the afternoon, we'll have NCARB, AIA, and our breakout sessions.
Help me welcome NCARB's presenters, Jared Zern, Chief Programs Officer, Josh Batkin, Vice President for Council Relations, and Ed Marley, President-elect from Arizona.
Jared, I'll turn the floor over to you, and you can take it away.
Okay, great. Well, I guess good afternoon, depending if you're on the East Coast, or good morning for most people who are not on the East Coast. I'll give you a little bit of background about myself before we jump in and start talking about sort of stuff that's happening at NCARB with the competency standard. And then I'm also joined by my colleague, Josh Batkin, who's here. He's with NCARB as well. And our incoming president of our board of directors, Ed Marley, was on this morning as well. He's not on camera right now, but he's joining as well and listening in. So Josh, I'm going to hand it off to you, let you do a super quick introduction, and then I'll probably give a little bit longer.
Great. Okay. I'm Vice President for Council Relations at NCARB. My name's Josh Batkin. I've been at the organization for 8 years. One of the things I get to do is work with our external partners like you. So we've had a great connection with CCCAP for a number of years. Joe joined our board of directors recently for a meeting, and we've had great conversations, as you heard, about the Workforce Readiness Report, IPAL, and the competencies that Jared is about to walk through. And Jared, I see that Ed has jumped back on, so maybe we could let him introduce himself and say hello too before you jumped in.
Good afternoon. And Josh, thanks for letting me know we were back on. I was working on some other stuff.
We do.
Well, welcome everybody. I don't know if they introduced me or not, but I'm Ed Marley. I'm the current vice president of the National Council of Architectural Registration Board for 2 more weeks. And then I get to move up, apparently. So really excited about that, and incredibly excited about our working relationship with CCCAP. I am thrilled that we're on this adventure together, and I'm looking forward to making great progress over the next year and the years to come. So welcome everyone, and I'm going to turn it back over to Jared and Josh.
So Ed, you're just making me a little nervous that you're something like, apparently they're going to let you move up, because you are going to become the president of the NCARB board of directors in 2 weeks. Like, it's not an option.
Yes. So I get that.
No choice.
That's good. And I guess so now I will introduce myself. My name is Jared Zern. I'm the Chief Programs Officer here at the National Council of Architectural Registration Boards. And I've actually had a pretty long history with NCARB. I've been at NCARB almost 17 years and have worked extensively on the examination, but over the last few years have really been transitioning into some of the larger programmatic and strategic initiatives that are underway. So Ed, as he has been on our board of directors, has sort of been overseeing our direction in this area of the competency standard, which I'm going to talk to you about more in depth, as well as overseeing sort of our conversations, and they're early on, about a future licensure process. We at NCARB we started with a blank sheet of paper and said, how could we redesign the licensure process to address better aspects of accessibility and fairness? And we're not going to talk a bunch about that today, but you probably, if you've been watching NCARB over the last few years, we're sort of constantly making changes. We're getting ready, like we're sort of always updating. And Joe mentioned the IPAL updates and some of those things. So it's kind of our philosophy at NCARB, right? One of our brands is to let's go further. So we're always challenging ourselves to make improvements, see where opportunity exists, and take advantage of that opportunity. A little bit of background about myself. Before joining NCARB, I was a community college faculty member. So like many of you, I spent 9 years at Minnesota State Community and Technical College in Northwest Minnesota, teaching a 2-year architectural technology program. While doing that, I also had I was running my own sole practitioner architecture firm and did work across the northwest part of Minnesota. So I understand your world when you're talking about what it means to like be in a community college. I served as the division chair when I was at the community college as well. So I was both faculty as well as doing some of that lovely administrative work, overseeing other academic programs and budget challenges and all of those fun things. So I clearly see the alignment between community college and technical college education and getting people ready to go to work in architecture, because I did it for almost a decade. That was a big deal. And so today, though, our time right now is to focus on the competency standard. So I'm going to share a presentation here in a minute and walk you through like, what is the NCARB competency standard? I'm going to ask Josh if he can go ahead and grab the link to our competency standard off of the NCARB website and just put it in the chat for you. So if you want a quick access link to it, what we're going to tell you is that we started on the competency standard like several years ago, because what we believe at NCARB is we had to pivot from our previous way of thinking into a new framework. And that framework that we chose to go down was a competency framework to say, what does it really take to be a licensed architect? And that's our goal. So as Joe had said earlier, we don't expect that educational programs are going to grab everything in the competency standard and you're going to adjust your curriculum to align fully with it. But what you're going to be able to do is look at this competency standard and say, where do you want to start to align stuff? Because I imagine every one of your programs is slightly different. I imagine the program I used to teach is different than the programs you teach today, right? And so for some of you, you may find more opportunity in the competency standard. Some of you may see a couple of areas just to focus on and not worry about the rest of it. And that's great. That's actually the whole point of this, is to give education and educational institutions the flexibility to leverage what works for you. I was in a small town. I mean, at times I get a little jealous when Joe talks about his lovely world of community college and San Diego and big city, because that was not my world. And I might be more like some of you, where I was in a town of 12,000 people running a community college program that really drew people from about 45 miles away, driving into our campus to take classes. And so we had a very different way of thinking about preparing people for work, because we knew they were coming to school and then they were dispersing back into the Northwest region in Minnesota. I think of San Diego, Joe. I don't know, I think your job must be super easy, because like you have so many students right there and you have so many firms right there, right? And you might go, Jared, it's super hard, you don't understand. But that's the point of this, right? Is we know there's diversity in education. We're trying to present a framework that gives you that freedom and flexibility. So I wanted to start there before I jump into it, because I don't want you to think we're going to say, hey, now you've got to go implement all this stuff in your program. Okay. So on that note, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and kind of walk you through what is the competency standard, right? What is it? Where did it come from? Things like that. I'm adjusting my screen at the moment, and I'm trying to bring up my chat, so in case anybody chats questions, we're good to go. Josh, thanks for sharing the link. So you put it in the chat. If you want to get access to the quick thing here, we're good to go. But here's what you need to start to understand is why competency standard. I already alluded to this earlier. We firmly believe that it's better for professional roles that require cognitive functions. Becoming an architect and being an architect is about decision making. As much as every architect you ever meet is going to tell you how much they love to sketch and draw and do all of this kind of stuff, the reality is the practice of architecture is up here. It's not what I do with my hands, right? I can click on a mouse, I can use a scribe, I can use a pencil, or even a Conte crayon if you're old school. But the reality is architecture is a cognitive function, and competencies do a better job at getting at that. And again, I'm talking to a bunch of educators. You understand this, right? You talk about, you're talking more about the effective skills of being an architect, and the cognitive skills of being an architect, not so much the psychomotor skills, right? Like that's part of what you do when you build your curriculum. So there's also, with the competency standard, greater effectiveness and greater focus on protecting the health, safety, and welfare of the public. That's what licensure is, right? The reason if you have a driver's license, we were all given a driver's license because we were able to demonstrate that we could competently operate a motor vehicle on public roadways, right? I hope we can all competently operate motor vehicles on public roadways if you hold a license. But that's what it's about, because that's about protecting not just yourself, but those around you. And you can take that same mindset and you can transfer it to architectural licensure. It's about protecting the public. That's our focus as we move into this. I said earlier, competency is not just a task. It's because competencies are slightly more complex. And again, as educators, you know this. A competency is an observable ability. It's something you can do. You can watch somebody do. It integrates knowledge. You have to know stuff to be able to be competent. There are skills that get integrated to be competent, but it also includes attitudes and behaviors. There are things you can do in this world, but if you do them in an inappropriate way, you're not actually being effective. You're not actually protecting the public's health, safety, and welfare. So our competency standard starts to address not just things you need to know or base skills, but it's really trying to wrap the bigger picture of knowledge, skills, attitudes, and behaviors. Again, back to your teaching world, that is taking the, the cognitive and the affective domains, and you're mirroring that, you're merging those together. It does correlate with on-job performance. Admittedly, the list you see is a list that has been refined over a couple of year effort to focus on what really matters on the job as a licensed architect. And again, we also challenged ourselves to only identify things that we could actually measure. Because if you can't measure it, it's not going to be an effective tool to determine whether somebody should be a licensed architect or not. Josh put the link in the chat. If you click on the link and you download the document, this is what the document's going to look like here on screen. It's about a 9-page document. It identifies the 16 competencies on page 3, and then pages 4 through 9 really give you greater detail and description about what each of the competencies are. So as Joe had alluded to earlier, you can access this document, you can look at it, you could start, I'm sure, highlighting things like, oh yeah, we cover some aspects of this in our curriculum, we cover some aspects of that in our curriculum. And again, maybe you don't get somebody to 100% competent, but if your graduates come out at 25% competent or 30% competent or 65% competent, right? You're setting them up to be more successful in firms. And that's how you can also use this as a tool to help inform your curriculum development. So we're going to start with these two. These are 2 graphics we love to show. The first one is the box and the cylinder. So for those of you on screen who have been in the architecture profession for a long time, what you know is that architects can do a lot of different things in a lot of different ways. And that is not what our competency standard is trying to address. We are not trying to cover everything that an architect can be for every client every single day of the year. What we focused on at NCARB was, what are those core things that an architect must be able to do? And that's the cylinder. So that's why we like to use this graphic. There are probably some things you all do that you're going to not see reflected in the competency standard. And that's okay, because you are maybe beyond the competent practitioner, right? You have moved into specialty areas, and that's great. But what we're not going to do at NCARB is we're not going to start taking every little specialty that exists in architecture, cram it into the licensure process, and make the licensure process overly burdensome. That's not effective regulation. So our job is to really right-size licensure to be the core things that one must be able to do. The other graphic you see on your screen is our little sort of speedometer, but you'll notice our speedometer stops at competent, right? So this is another way to think about it, that we need people who are better than novice, and we need people who are better than being advanced beginners when they hold a license to practice. But what we need is we only need them to be competent. We don't need them to be, super proficient, and we don't need them to be an expert. And I'll use, Ed as the example. If you take me, who has been in the, now sadly, I've been in the profession for like 20 some years or more. Ed has been in the profession for, I don't know, Ed, maybe the same length of time, maybe a little longer, but maybe a little longer. But the reality is, you can't look at how Ed practices on a day-to-day basis and say, well, that's what everybody should know who gets a license to practice. That's not a fair measurement, right? So what you have to do is you have to say, what is really that minimum set of skills, that's minimum competency level, and we refer to that as being just qualified. What's that just qualified level where that's where the license is granted? After that, people go into all these different specialty areas. They become those proficients in certain areas. They become the experts, and that's great. So also, as you're reading these, check yourself to not be thinking, oh, the best architect you've ever met. Think about, no, this is the architect day-to-day practicing, delivering services to their clients, protecting their clients' interests, and protecting the public at large. Quick overview, this is a quick map that shows you, here's where the competency standard came from. So this is not something that came out of my head. This is not something that Josh sat down one day and wrote down, or Ed, or anybody. This was a multi-year effort that actually included thousands and thousands and thousands of architects and other people from the built environment. over the course of several years. So we actually started back in 2021. So now like 4 years ago, NCARB did a really large survey called the Analysis of Practice. We engaged with over 19,000 people in the built environment. So architects, engineers, interior designers, landscape architects, a variety, building owners, contractors, like the whole world. And we said, what's going on in architecture today? And how does that influence what an architect should be able to do? That was the big 2021-2022 survey. From that, we took that data and we fed it into a task force in 2022. And that task force started to really chew on this question of that qualified. Okay, so there's all this stuff architects do, but what's the stuff we extract out that really identifies the qualified architect? So from 2022 into 2023, a task force kept iterating on it. And in the 2022 and 2023 timeframe, they came up with a draft set of competencies. So now we're into that third little graphic. And our draft competencies were like, oh, we think we did a great job. Right now, I was part of that task force. I was the staff liaison from NCARB working with volunteers on it. And they got to a place where they were feeling pretty good. And we said, great, now we're going to check our work. And we took those draft competencies and we went out for a validation survey to almost another 5,000 architects around the country and said, tell us if we're right. Is this fit? Doesn't it fit? Where are we shooting too high? Where did we miss something? So we took all that data, and that happened in the fall of 2023, and we went back to and we refined the competencies even more. So from 2023 into 2024, the task force continued, but it also continued engaging with more and more stakeholder groups, and they kept refining these competencies. That's what led to, in the fall of 2024, the final draft that the NCARB Board of Directors adopted. And it was in October of 2024 that NCARB released the competency standard. So it's really only been out about 8 months thus far that it's been sort of a public document. So that's the flow. So when you see this document on our website, please remember the multiple years of effort and the literally, over 19,000 people who have informed aspects of this development, right? It's critical that that's where the validity of this competency standard comes from. So let's jump into it. Joe already gave you a preview, right? So there's 16 competencies, and those 16 competencies, we broke them into 3 domains. So I'm going to tell you, don't get hung up on the 3 domains. The 3 domains were just a way to help us organize the competencies. I've given this presentation and I've broken the 16 competencies into 5 domains. You can easily do it because it's all about how you want to cluster. So to make it simple, in the PDF document on our website, we said, let's just put it into 3. And we lumped design and documentation into the first domain. So if you look at these competencies 1 through 8, most people very clearly start to see the inception of a project all the way through the design phases, all the way through the documentation. And that's what you're starting to see. So competency number 1 says things like assess regulatory requirements, right? Competency number 2, evaluate existing project conditions. That could be site and building, right? Depending on if it's a retrofit, adaptive reuse, or whether maybe you're doing something on a barren lot and you get to do everything completely new. All the way through developing a program, which is number 3. And then we really start getting into some of the design, right? Competency 4 is where you first see like create a design solution. So it's important to see that these competencies are sort of this, people will see it as the progression of a project. But the other important thing that we want to make sure people understand is we know assessing regulatory design requirements isn't the thing you do at the beginning and then you never do it again. Right? We all know, who have ever done any work in architecture, that you start with, oh yeah, I'm in this city, I've got to follow this building code. Maybe I have to deal with the health department, or maybe I'm doing a school, so I got to deal with the education department in the state. Some states make you run the projects through there, but you start. And I guess I will ask, how many of you have ever had a project where you're partway through the project and realize, oh, there's a whole nother jurisdiction that I've got to run stuff through? Whether it's a super critical HOA, if you're doing something in a community, whether it's a design review board for a local city, right? There's all these different requirements. So the important thing to remember about every one of these competencies is they span the project, right? I constantly assess regulatory design requirements as I'm designing. You're constantly doing it. It's not like I did it once and I stop, right? Create design solutions. Architects never stop designing. We know that, right? You start designing in day one. We all know we're designing all the way through construction. Like construction's happening, you're still walking out on the job site and you're going, we can maybe tweak this, we could tweak that. So it's important to realize these competencies, although they're clustered, aren't phase specific. And I hope you translate that to your students, right? That your students start to understand this, that you never stop designing, right? You never stop thinking about better ways of detailing or documenting projects, right? That's what we do. The reality is projects are done, and then we're still redesigning them in our head, to be honest. Okay, so this is the first phase, right? So the first four, then we get to design 4, 5, 6. Those are really the design competencies. And then 7 and 8 are the documentation ones that people really start thinking about, right? You have to create some deliverables, whether that's your BIM model, whether that you're still, dare I say, you're printing drawings from AutoCAD, two-dimensional drawings. That totally works, right? Those are deliverables. You've got to have specifications in there. And then competency number 8 is coordinating that integration of building systems. And this is a huge one. I'll point out 8 because this one always gets a lot of conversation, because what we know is the more you can coordinate the work before you start building, the better it is in the interest of the client that the project gets built effectively and those kind of things. So, competency 8 is pretty critical. So that's our first domain, but again, it's 8 distinct competencies. That's an important thing to remember too. NCARB's goal is to, in the future, want to measure each one of these independently. So we jump to the second domain. And again, it's called the construction administration domain. But again, when you look at competencies 9 and 10, think about this as how you have to think about this all throughout a project. So competency 9 starts saying, prepare and administer the documentation of the construction phase. Well, Ed can certainly tell you stories that Ed's probably thinking about how he's going to deliver the documentation even while he's designing, right? That's what you do. Because depending on the delivery method, if you're doing a pretty traditional design the project, bid the project, and then build the project, we create documentation a certain way. If you're in a design build environment, you may be approaching it very differently. You're not going to do the same set of documents because you have a different relationship with the contractor. And so competency number 9 starts to address all of these factors. It's not, I just create drawings to go out for bid, but it's, I have to understand that I'm creating documents based on the conditions of the project. And then competency 10 is evaluate the progress of construction. And this is another big one. We know this is a critical role for architects, is when you finally get the project built, it's finally starting to be built. Are they building what you actually designed, right? Is the contractor building the product per the quality you specified? But is the contractor also building the product that you designed, right? Are they really meeting it? And sometimes it's as simple as, is the building as big as it's supposed to be? Did they put the building at the right place on the site? And I say that partly to help Josh understand that, Josh, that doesn't always happen. I literally had an architectural project one time. The contractor put the building in the wrong place on the site.
So that's a problem.
That's a problem. It turned out to be a problem. And I will say it actually turned out to be a really big problem not for me, but for the contractor, because they put it in the setback. They actually measured wrong when they surveyed and laid out their footings. They started building, and of course the sites tore up, right? And like nobody really knew. And all of a sudden, as the building started coming out of the ground, we were like, this doesn't look right. This is just not seeming. And then we went back and resurveyed, and they literally skewed the building, put it in the wrong place, had set into the setback. They had to buy land from the neighbor to then meet the official setback, right? This is the kind of stuff that's real world architecture, but that was a huge deal, right? Like we, the architects, were all of a sudden the ones that were mediating between owner having a building built, contractor building a building, but not quite in the right place. And then how do you navigate that kind of stuff? So 9 and 10 are big. They're super important. As we know, these can be massively long components of the architectural phase of getting a building built. But in the end, there's really only 2 competencies. Competency number 9 is about the documentation phase, right? Get it documented and preparing and administering all of this stuff. So this includes doing pay requests. This means responding to RFIs. This is all of that administrative stuff that architecture firms are responsible for doing during construction. Competency 10 is all about evaluating the progress of that construction with what was the design intent. So 2 competencies, but kind of a big deal. And then our last domain are the competencies around practice and project management. And again, NCARB still believes this is an important skill set for everybody who wants to be a licensed architect. Competencies 11, 12, and 13 are really focused more on the project management side, right? Pulling teams together, implementing a work plan, organizing and coordinating that team, right? That's kind of the critical thing. Yeah, contracts are in there. Joe was mentioning his students are going to be looking at like contracts earlier over the summer. That's super important that you understand your contractual responsibilities as a professional. What are you promising to do? Can you really deliver on that? Competencies 14, 15, and 16, those are the ones about firm management. Those of you, again, you're educators, you're looking at these competencies and you're very quickly noticing these are the 3 that all start with understand. Understand statutes, understand ethical and professional standards, and understand foundational business principles. We know what that means in education, right? We're saying we need people to understand stuff. Back to, again, that speedometer graphic. We're not saying we need the world's best business people to become licensed architects. Now, it's great if you have an MBA and you're super amazing at running a business. But the reality is this task force and through the validation efforts really are wanting to reinforce that, yes, architects need a basic level of business understanding, right? We even started to refer to it as just, can you keep track of the checkbook? Are you getting enough money in to pay your employees to deliver competent services? What we're not saying is you're going to go out and become the next, multi-millionaire architect, that's out there. But we need fundamental business knowledge to exist, because architects who don't stay in business harm clients. And again, we have the horror stories from NCARB and our member boards and disciplinary action about architects that just didn't do a good job running their business. That starts to impact how they do the work of architecture, and then they do poor quality work, and then that leads to client harm and potentially even public harm if they start cutting corners on buildings and trying to get away with stuff. So 14, 15, and 16 are all at the understand level, but it's important to understand that these are very important competencies still for architects going forward. So these are the 16 competencies that are out there. At this point, I'm going to kind of keep going forward and talk just a little bit about what NCARB is doing with them in the short term, and then we'll take some questions. The first thing NCARB is doing is we're making some updates to our architectural experience program and to the architect registration exam. Nothing major. So I always start by saying that, like, over the course of the late summer, Joe asked me, what am I doing this summer? Well, I'm not taking a lot of vacations, but I'm going to be talking to people about updates to the AXP and the ARE. So starting in probably late July, you're going to hear from NCARB that there are changes coming to AXP and there are changes coming to the ARE. We are not changing the 6 divisions. We're not changing the 6 experience areas. We're not changing the total number of hours related to AXP. So the main format of both programs remains intact. But what we've done is we've gone inside of the structure and we're looking at how can we make some minor updates to both AXP and the ARE to better align to these 16 competencies that I just talked about. And what that means is we're updating some of the objectives on the exam. It means we're tweaking the descriptions to the 6 experience areas inside of AXP, because we want our current programs to be better aligned with the now existing competency standard. Down the road, you see greater educational alignment. One of the reasons we're here today is because we know educators are actually pretty excited. Some educators are pretty excited about the competency standard, because what they're seeing is an opportunity to maybe not meet a full competency coming out of school, but really focus some of your educational efforts to better align your students with what the practice expectations are. We're seeing it at both community colleges. We're hearing it from 4-year architecture programs. We're hearing it from NAV accredited degree program faculty. Now, at the same time, I'm going to be honest, I'm hearing some educators, again, they're freaking out. They're nervous because there's a misconception that NCARB is going to tell them what to teach. And I'm going to tell you that's not what we're doing. We're not telling you what to teach. What we're telling you is these 16 things are what it takes to earn a license to practice architecture. You can decide how much you want to align to those things or not. That may not be your jam, right? You know, I'll steal Joe's term. He said, your jam is construction documents. So you're probably going, yeah, Jared, that was competency number 7. We're totally going to rock on competency number 7, right? Your jam may have nothing to do with competencies 14, 15, and 16. And that's totally fine, right? There's nothing wrong with that. That's where we're seeing greater educational alignment. We want to keep engaging with you so you can find the best opportunities for you based on your academic setting. As we go further down the road, that next curve is future licensure process. So when I alluded to this earlier, NCARB's taking a fresh look at redoing the licensure process. Yes, there's still going to be education. Yes, there's still going to be experience. And yes, there's still going to be examination. But what we're trying to figure out is, can we more effectively measure what someone has learned in education and give them credit for it so we don't have to duplicate that assessment later on through an exam or through an experience requirement? At the same time, what we're trying to say is, oh, is there a way we can look at experience and how people have truly demonstrated they're competent through different work settings, different work experience, and basically, again, give them direct credit towards the competency based on their experience. And again, not make them also show up and take a written test, right? So what we're trying to do is get rid of redundancy. And again, same thing with the examination. We're actually looking at how can we change the exam to do a better job at actually being a competency assessment and focus solely on measuring ability, right? Because that's what matters, right? Because if you keep to do it, you need to know it. So let's stop measuring what you know. Let's start measuring what you can do, and then again, give you credit for that. Now, the future licensure process is not going to launch for several more years. When I talk to some people, they get super excited about this, and then they start talking to me about 2027 and 2028, and then I get really nervous because I can't get this done by 2027 and 2028. The reality is when you hear NCARB talk about the future licensure process, you should in your brain think 2028 at the super, super, super earliest, more likely 2029 and 2030. So your current students are going to be out in the industry. Some of them may already be licensed before the future licensure process kicks in. So don't tell people to stop and wait. Tell people to engage now in the current licensure process. We're making updates. We're good to go. We're here to support them. For people later on that want to come back into licensure in the 2029, 2030 process, yes, it's going to be a different licensure process. Hopefully what they'll see is a more effective licensure process that really is aligned purely to these 16 competencies. And then way down the road, focused continuing competency. This is one of those ongoing topics in architecture. We always talk about our CE. Emmanuel, you're at the AAA conference. You're probably going to some sessions. I'm not going to quiz you, but I guess I'm always curious about like how much did you really learn at those continuing ed sessions? Are you staying competent as a practitioner? And I think the answer sometimes is absolutely yes. I think sometimes the answer is maybe not so much, depending on the session. And so again, what NCARB wants to do is in the far future, figure out how to make sure that not only are every newly licensed person competent in all 16 areas, but how are you making sure this guy right here who got my license like now almost 30 years ago still is truly competent in all 16 areas? I've been doing my continuing ed for decades, but the reality is, am I really competent in all 16 areas? I would hope yes. NCARB's just sort of having some early conversations right now, even with AIA, about, well, what does this mean and how can we do stuff in the future? So that's our big roadmap of where we're headed. I'm actually going to stop sharing and see what questions people may have for us about all of this. So I'm looking in the chat. Feel free to put things in the chat. Feel free to just unmute and fire questions at me. Or if I said anything that was just shocking or startling, please let me know. Hearing none, man.
I mean, you
Josh?
teach me that it was important to put a building where it's supposed to go. So I feel like I've really learned
So
as a
I'm not,
non-architect a lot during this.
Josh, I'm not kidding. Like, maybe this is me. I'm super curious if anybody else has had this experience. When I first came out of college, I also worked at an architecture firm. I was not yet licensed, and the building was put in the wrong spot there too. So I don't know. Is this like, Ed, have you ever had that happen where a building was literally not put in the right spot?
Not personally or in my firm, but when I was on the Arizona board, we had an enforcement case where the building was actually put on the wrong site.
Oh,
Yeah,
That's
it
huge.
wasn't as easy as, yeah, it was significant.
No, I've always been on the right site, just maybe not in the right place. On the right
Jared,
Yep.
Jared, we have our first question. It might be Ed might want to start and then kick to you, but it's from Dorothy. How does NCARB see NAB's role in the future? Who wants to grab that one?
Want me to take it? I'll take it.
Sure, you can start.
Right now we see NAB's role continuing just as it has. They're a key component of it. What we're working on is hoping as they move forward to their next accreditation review meeting that they may have, I think it's in 26 or 27, that some of the criteria for accreditation would begin to align with the competencies. And so we would see we're trying to continue that dialogue. So there's alignment with NAB criteria with our competency model, because I think that'll help all the programs.
Yeah. And I will add to what Ed is saying is, and we've already started these conversations with NAB. So we had a conversation with NAB in the mid-April timeframe with their board of directors, and NAB's already started looking at the competency standard as well. So they took the competency standard, like Joe had showed you, he had talked about earlier about how we have a committee, the education committee, that did some preliminary work this year. NAB spun up their own little work group, and they did the kind of the same exercise, which is let's look at the NAB performance criteria, let's align it to the competencies, and let's see where it matches, where we're out of alignment, that kind of stuff. And NAB shared with us some of their preliminary findings, and we've started some conversations with them about working on this together, like figuring out where does any graduate from a NAB school automatically get the box checked on those competencies, because that could be an envisioned future for us, right? There could be an envisioned future where somebody goes to a community college that's been validated and be like, check, you're coming out of community college, you've already checked off a couple of the competencies related to architecture. Maybe you go on to a NAB program, check, you check off a couple more of those competencies. That way, by the time you come out of school, you're in work, you don't have 16 competencies to document anymore. You're maybe down to 10. Right? So again, back to this thinking of an efficient licensure process. It's collaborating with NAB to make that happen, to figure out where they best fit, where other schools fit as well.
And I had a really good conversation with a faculty member from one of the East Coast universities. It escapes my mind right now, but he's really excited about it because what he's looking at is they look at realigning their curriculum to the competencies. They will actually kind of advertise, if you will, what competencies their program will fulfill, and say, when you come away from here, you should be competent in competencies 1, 6, 8, and 5, or whatever. And then that helps firms that are looking at their graduates understand the competencies that they need to rise up and help address as that person moves through their career. So we've got some excitement building.
I guess I will ask the question to those of you, that are teaching. It's like, when you look at the 16 competencies, where do you see probably the biggest opportunity? And even if it's just at the domain level, do you see it more in the design and documentation side, sort of like Joe was saying, or do you see it in some of the practice and project management? Maybe some of your programs actually focus a little more on that. I'm just kind of curious.
Jared, I'll jump into that one. I tell you, our team really enjoyed the competencies because it allowed us to look at what we're doing and to what depth and what we're not doing. And it starts to tell us regionally where our industry partners need to start being held accountable for, and what our universities and colleges are supposed to be held accountable for. Because right now there's this discrepancy, right? We say you learn so much in school, but you learn the rest at the firm, and the firms are like, wait a second, this cookie's unbaked. I need more time with the student. And there's this weird expectation of who teaches what. So I think what it's done for us regionally is say, you are responsible for X, you'll be responsible for Y, and now we're going to have a better streamlined process.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And we had some multiple conversations with people at the AI conference this last week about that exact issue, right? Like, what's the role of education? And the role of education is not to get somebody 100% to be a independently licensable practitioner. Like, maybe education can do that, but that's a very special type of education, right? That probably involves a lot of real world experience integrated into the curriculum. And so helping to define that line might be great for everybody in the profession. Yeah. Betsy's chatting and saying, yeah, probably more on the design, that 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, I totally can see that. I think 9 and 10, those are the construction administration ones. Those, I mean, when we talk about it, honestly, everybody kind of says, yeah, that's the real world stuff. That's probably experiential based, right? That's where you really understand the getting out on the job site. Like, you need projects being built. You got to go out and see that kind of stuff. So. Well, I guess, Joe, we'll pivot a little bit and we can talk I'll touch a hair on some of the iPal changes that you had mentioned, just so people want to, they can come into our breakout room later today. Yes, this is a very, very recent change with inside of NCARB. So the Integrated Path to Architectural Licensure, this was a program that was launched several years ago. And when it was initially launched, it was limited to only NAB accredited architectural programs. And it allowed NAB accredited degree programs to become identified as an IPAL program with NCARB. And what that did is, one, we then set up a relationship. The school establishes an IPAL advisor. NCARB works with the IPAL advisor at that school to kind of go back and forth and look at their curriculum and understand how can the school best integrate key components of licensure while students are being students. And so this, again, has always been with NAB programs, so like 5-year 4+2 type programs. And we've decided, so just this last year, the board of directors voted to expand that to other programs, whether it's 2-year community colleges that have articulation agreements into a NAB accredited degree program, or 4-year architecture programs that also qualify as the pre-professional degree that allows for immediate an entry into the 2-year master's program. So we're trying to broaden IPAL into more educational programs. And we're officially starting July 1. So there's already been the press release. It's on our website. You can learn more about what the IPAL program looks like. What we're going to do on July 1, we're going to be pushing out a lot more information about how to apply. What does it mean? How does it look like? And Joe, I heard you say earlier, you're going to sort of stress test it and then share it with folks, what you're going through.
Yeah.
And what you're going to find is the process is it's an iterative process, right? Because you're going to probably come to NCARB and say, here's how we think we can plug some experience, and we can even plug some access into taking the practice exams for the ARE into our curriculum. And then we can kind of work with you on that, be like, yeah, this seems to make sense, makes not. And then basically you get that designation. It allows you to really start promoting your program as an IPAL program. But the key, I will tell you, your responsibility as an educational institution is going to be establishing that IPAL advisor. And it's going to then be having those conversations with your students about what it means to be on the licensure path. Some of you are probably already doing this. That's maybe why Joe's like, we're totally going to jump on this. Because if you're already having these conversations, you may see that IPAL is a very light lift to get that designation, and it might help distinguish your program in the region that you're in.
Jared, can I throw out one observation?
Sure.
So one of the things why our students and our members are so excited is because many of our students are working part-time. And a lot of them are working in allied industries. So they're in architecture, interior design, landscape design. They're in the field doing something. What I think is really exciting is to watch that personal experience of in the field construction framing or doing whatever become a tangible object as a pathway towards licensure. So that's what a lot of our members are looking at, is watching these young students who are actually doing something get now credit for that, which makes them really excited. And once again, being part of this overall big envelope.
Right. Yeah. I would also hope, and Joe, I don't know if this is going to play out or not, but if someone is in a 2-year program, they've already been identified as an IPAL student, maybe it also helps them get accepted into a NAB degree program if that's what they want. Because like you were talking earlier, sort of this standardized process of getting from 2-year into the 4-year or the 5-year programs, that the IPAL can be a pathway that can really help that too, maybe. I would hope.
We haven't even entertained that. That is a great observation. So if we do have a NAB accredited university that we're aligning with, maybe that curriculum can start to align as well, and it starts to streamline that into a placement process. Hopefully even eliminating some of the portfolio requirements and just getting them into that program because now they have that core experience. Great idea.
Yeah, exactly. So Diana has a question over here. I'm reading it. It's eventually, will students be able to document competencies after they have completed high school and demonstrate these competencies while studying? So yes. So I'm going to sort of, the quick answer, Diana, is yes. That's sort of that end vision state that NCARB's hoping to create, is that depending on someone's educational background, they may be able to say, I'm good. I am good with these 4 competencies. And then we figure out a way to, and this is what NCARB's working on right now. So we are calling it validated educational outcomes, right? Whether that's validated through some sort of third-party accrediting body, whether NCARB is actually going to establish a process and procedure around this that allows people to say, hey, I've got this. We validate it and say, yes, you do, and that's it. And we check the box on that competency. That is our end goal. And when I say check the box, I literally mean check the box. We're not going to make them check some other boxes. That's the whole point about removing redundancy, removing sort of artificial barriers from the licensure process. Yep. And yeah, the follow-up question you asked was about, like, could somebody in high school? I think the answer is yes, right? Like, education could start in high school. Education can continue all the way through into a community college and so on. I will tell you, our task force even continues to have the bold conversations about YouTube University, right? In the end, competency is about you being competent. It's not about where you learned it. So if somebody, and I know this is not a real case scenario today, but if somebody literally could study all the stuff that lives on YouTube about architecture, could they get competent enough? And can we have a process? Now that process probably would be some sort of an assessment, right? Post reviewing all the content on YouTube to say, yeah, I'm ready to be licensed. And so their education, there was no formal education. It was all unstructured, and that's perfectly fine, right? That's the way NCARB's trying to think about this. Mr. Wilson says, what thoughts does everyone have about every NAB program having a point person who is in charge to maintain relationships with local community colleges? That's a bold question. What do you think about requiring NAB schools to have a designated community college liaison? Yeah, I see some thumbs up. Give me an idea. So, cool. Other thoughts or questions for NCARB? Otherwise, like Joe had said, we're going to be in one of the breakout rooms later on today. You can always stop by, ask us any questions, go into detail on anything. Other than that, I'm going to say thank you all for what you do. Again, I know what you all do. I've lived it. Enjoy your summers if you're actually not teaching. It is the best part of, let's be honest, it's the best part of teaching is when you get that little bit of downtime in the summer to spend time with your family. So.
Well, and I'll speak for the board with the board vice president on, so he can correct me if I get it wrong. But we've really appreciated the partnership from Randy, from Joe, from the entire organization. And Joe, really have appreciated your engagement in the education committee. It's been very valuable. Thank you for having us here today.
And I won't contradict what Josh said. I agree completely. So look forward to continuing the conversation. Thank you.
Great. Thanks
I'd
all.
like to, on our behalf, say one thing to Josh, Jared, and Ed. your commitment to community colleges is amazing. I know, Jared, it's a personal thing because you've taught. Josh, we've chatted, and Ed, I know we've chatted as well. When we can see that as an organization, from going to your boards and presenting to being on committees such as the Education Committee, we can really see your commitment to our local schools. The rules that you're enacting now are going to be an amazing rippling effect over generations to come, because I think what the goal was to widen the highway so more people can enter on, and you are successfully doing that, at least in my eyes, of this organization. So let me start us by saying thank you very much for your time, and of course, thank you very much for your guidance. I really look forward to continuing on my work with the Education Committee and bringing back this work to this group as we move forward.
Okay, great.
Thank you, Joe. We are going to be jumping into the student awards presentation. Betsy, can I put you on the line?
I'm
Betsy.
here.
Hi, Betsy. How are you doing?
I'm fine. How are you?
Good, good. We need to stall a little bit because we are ahead of schedule. So if you could tell the group here about your experience in setting this competition forward and the presentations that we got, and then the AIA will do the presentation of the awards, since they graciously, excuse me, gave us some wonderful money to give to the students.
Okay, great. Okay, I'm Betsy Masters, and I teach at the Community College of Philadelphia, here in Philadelphia. And I've been involved in the AIA for many, many years. I finally stepped back just recently. And I've been involved in the CCCAP pretty much since the very beginning, when we had a meeting down in Washington in 2012, I think it was, to get this whole group started. And pretty early on, we started offering a student design competition. And I sort of stepped back a little bit this past year on this current one. But there is a committee of people who meets pretty much starting in June to determine what kind of competition we should offer and what is a reasonable topic for our levels of students, you know, in the first 2 years of architectural study. And the last couple of years, we've really tried to focus on issues that are pertinent, that are timely, and that would allow for a very rich discussion in studio, and also rich possibilities for research on the part of the students. And so this past year, the project was a wellness center. So it was focusing on the need for bringing health in all of its aspects to communities that are smaller and perhaps a little bit more rural. So it was sited in an imaginary town, which the students could locate wherever they wanted along, I think it was the 45 degrees north. So, you know, that gives you a broad range of climate and also terrain possibilities. So the competition is usually available in December. Hopefully some of you might be interested in working on it for next year. And I volunteered to kind of operate separately from the competition creators. And once they gave me the program, I arranged for the jury, and that's Angela Motzi. Angela is in Cincinnati and is an expert in this field. Denise Thompson is here in Philadelphia, former AIA president. I mean, we are really flush with AIA people on this jury. And she works in the healthcare industry. and then John Dwyer, who's on the board. I'm surprised he's not here today, but he's on the CCCAP board. And those three jurors also agreed to each give a lecture, which we recorded and made available to all the entrants. And I couldn't find them on the CCCAP website, but they should be available, as are all past lectures that we've had. So, even though they all apply to a particular competition, there's still a lot of really good information in there. But it was a way to make deep knowledge available to all of our students at the community college level, because I don't know about you all, but we don't have enough money to, have a robust lecture series. And let's see, they were due on May 13th. So pretty much at the end of everybody's school year, unless you happen to be on a quarter system. We also open it up to non-community college students, as long as they're in their first 2 years of study in design. So, we've had a good rate of participation even during the pandemic. I don't even think during the pandemic we extended the deadline, unless it was maybe a week or two. But anyway, that's probably enough.
Thank you very much, Betsy. That sounds great. And thank you for your hard work in the committee as well.
Yeah, I would just add, anybody listening to this, that I've really enjoyed working with the committee all these years, and Jane Ostergaard and Christine Marriott. Christine, I think, is here. They really pull this through, especially, getting it out to everybody and making sure that the registrants are all, correct and have the right numbers, and, all of those things that it takes to make this happen. And we we sometimes have a Zoom just because we miss each other, so we're all over the place, and it's really great to have those connections. So I'd encourage you to get involved.
Thank you. All right, so as we continue, we do have, I hope I don't mess up your name, Rosa Villastigo of EDI Strategies from the AIA. They will help us read the names of the winners. And Joe's going to show show the images of the student work.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for that introduction. As Emmanuel said, my name is Rosa Villastigo, and I am the Director of Higher Education Engagement with AIA. So we are honored to be able to announce these winners and to be able to partner with all of you on honoring these students. So we have 2 honorable mentions, and first, second, and third place. So we'll start with the honorable mention, and we'll build up excitement as we go up the line. So first, from Anne Arundel Community College in Arnold, Maryland, shout out to Maryland, with advising Professor Robert Lowe. We have Srisuda Tamyaku with the Woven Embrace Center. And then our next honorable mention, from Del Mar College in Corpus Christi, Texas, with advising professors Laura Bienick and Bradford Eilering.
Yes, if I could just interject here.
Yeah.
We've got these images reversed.
Oh, no.
For the honorable mentions. But anyway, we can all understand what this is all about.
Sorry about that.
Well, the work from Del Mar College is from Cristina Rojas and Angelica Flores.
I'm sorry, is the image flipped or is the correct project being shown?
Well, the project did not match up with the entrance information. Those two projects just need to be flip-flopped.
So the first one and the second one, or the one that we presented first, should have been in Del Mar's College, and then the other one goes over to the other side, to
You got it, the manual.
Arundel.
You got it, the manual.
Hey.
How's that? We'll do kind of a split screen.
Yeah.
Thank you, Brad.
All right. So both great examples. So we'll move on to third place. So third place also comes from Del Mar College in Corpus Christi, Texas.
Yay.
And we'll hope this one is correct. And the third place winners are Edgar Hernandez and Zachary Bowers.
Yes, indeed.
Maybe we can just zoom in for one moment.
Yeah. And Brad, since these were from your school, is there anything that you wanted to say about them?
Well, yes, just briefly, the teams worked very hard on this exercise. It with our other curriculum, they only had 8 weeks to work on this. So when they got back from spring break, they dove into the research and really comprehended what the project was all about in terms of site, program, as well as client needs, and just really went to work. And to be honest, we had we had weekly deadlines that we were trying to meet, and oftentimes Laura and I, who team taught this semester, we were thinking there's no way we're going to get to the end, but somehow they were able to pull this together in 7 weeks. And that last week we had a panel of architects from our local industry come in and provide a selection. We staged 7 teams initially, and they whittled it down to 3 teams. Those 3 teams were submitted, and here 2 of the teams are being recognized.
How about the Anne Arundel?
Oh,
anybody from there?
Do we have anyone from Anne Arundel Community College?
Yeah, Jeff and I are here from AACC. It's Anne Arundel Community College.
Sorry.
Just outside of Annapolis, Maryland. I wasn't one of the studio advisors for this project. My colleague, Professor Lowe, was, but I don't know if Jeff is here, Jeff Robertson, he might be able to speak to that. I will tell you that Jessie, who is Sarasita, she goes by Jessie. She is a wonderful student, an adult student. So we're talking about how we're being inclusive of various diverse backgrounds and our students coming at, various age ranges and whatnot. Jessie is a mom of 2. She actually lived about an hour away from campus, so she was there every day working on her project, and she's very dedicated and kind of coming back for her second swan song. She was already in engineering, and just when she returned back from work after having children, she was just feeling like it was a lifeless career path, and so she pursued architecture instead. So she's a very dedicated student and did a wonderful job on this project.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
And as we can see in the chat, she's pursuing her master's in Morgan State, at Morgan State in the fall.
Wow.
All right. So we can move on to second place. And do we actually have anyone from the Community College of Philadelphia here on the call?
Betsy Masters.
Betsy Masters. So the second place winner is Angel Niemczek from Community College of Philadelphia. And Betsy, do you want to say a little bit about this entrance?
Yeah, something looks a little off. The right board is not showing up, but Angel is very much a motivated, self-propelled student. During her time at CCP, she's undertaken a number of design competitions outside of studio, so in addition to her studio work. And her research was very thorough. She loves building models, as you can tell here. I'm sorry, the right side it was showing earlier, but yeah, the plans are missing. And we had a review on April 30th with visiting jurors, and they were entranced with her ability to make curves and connect the curves properly in AutoCAD, that there was a very high level of skill in the drawing. But she's a very good designer. She is also an older student. I think she started at College of DuPage with Jane, although not with Jane, but and in architecture, and then she transferred to animation, I think it was. But then the jobs dried up in animation, and she moved to Philadelphia simultaneously. So, you know, she came back into architecture with us. So anyway, I don't know what's wrong with that file there, that she has two boards. Yeah. And her written statement was amazing.
So maybe if you refresh.
I think I have it. So when you finish, if you want to put it up, there it is. Yeah. Ooh, look at that.
And it's gone again.
Maybe.
For a second, it looked amazing. Unfortunately, for the mural technical difficulties, but
it's so amazing you just can't believe it.
And are these going to be available online for viewing afterwards as well?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So hopefully we'll be able to get a look at it a little more in depth moving forward.
It must be so high quality that you can't. It's not picking up.
All right. So let's go ahead and we can move on to first place. Do we have anyone from Brookdale Community College on?
Yes, I'm Ed O'Neill. So we had two studios that somewhat functioned in the same space. So Bob Longo was the professor of this one. I was the professor of the other one. We had actually 24 students total, 12 teams. And again, this was like I think Brad had said, we took this as a 7-week team project. So it's teams of 2 working right after spring break, coming back in. It was kind of interesting that this scheme that you're looking at was really, their concept was gleaned from looking at the demographics. And they saw that the majority of people in the community were Native American. And so they looked at Native American architecture in that region of the country and determined that wind was going to be the characteristic that was going to actually form the building. And one of the things that surprised me, these two students are incredibly talented and incredibly aggressive intellectually. So they went somehow, it's way beyond me. They went into the National Weather Service website and found that they could create a simulation using a site that they took from the longitude and latitude in the program. And they created a wind diagram. And then the wind diagram showed that the earth would be lifted because I guess in the Native American cultures in that region, wind again was a form giver. So they thought that then the wind would form this landscape and that would be the open space. And then under it, although at grade, would be the building itself, which was the wellness center. And then they came up with a glue laminated structural system to support the building so that the inside of the building also reflected what was going on the roof. And then you can see their different diagrams about sustainability, their rendering quality. Again, when it is not certainly my background, but when you look at some of the three-dimensional renderings, they are incredibly lifelike, and how to do that by combining multiple applications, computer applications, is really remarkable at how detailed you can get if you know how to use the system. But what I always was impressed by them throughout their time at Brookdale was they dive into these digital things, and a lot of students dive into the digital things and then forget about the real architecture of it. It starts to become very image-based. But they are, I think, incredibly gifted at developing floor plans that are not only functional but buildable. So as the form looks like the form looks, but it is a buildable thing, which really comes back to that whole thing about marrying between industry as well as academia. And so both of them will transfer. Hopefully, they'll be successful. I'm sure they will be wherever they go. But they were a joy to work with. Unfortunately, at community college, you only see students for 2 years and then they're gone. So I will miss the fact that they go. But we have a pretty good system of backtracking students. So like at our juries, we have a number of students who were students at our college on the juries, as well as professionals from the area. So I hope they'll be back.
Thank you, Ed. And based on this work, it seems like we'll probably be seeing a lot more from them in years to come. So the winners' names for that first place placement are Eduardo Coelho and Natalie Torres. So thank you to all the schools that participated and worked with your students, and congratulations on all of this amazing work.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you, Rosa Villastigo, for doing the presentation of the student awards. She's also with the AIA and EDI strategies.
I now present to you AIA's presenters, Corey Clayborne, FAIA, and Diana Eidenshink, President of ACE Mentor Program of America.
Good. Well, first and foremost, thank CCAP and the whole program planning committee for inviting Diana and I to share a little bit about both some work that we're doing with some of our alliance partners like NCARB and ACSA, and then looking at, all right, taking this research, taking what we've learned, what are some of the ingredients that might form a solution? And that's where Diana's going to come in and share a little bit about some formalized mentoring programs that we've been collaborating on together through the ACE Mentors Program of America. So thank you again for that opportunity. The research that I'm going to step through is called Building Impact, Perspectives and Recommendations on the Current State and Future of Architecture. And this is hot off the presses. So this was completed this year. NCARB, ACSA, and AIA partnered with the RAND Corporation, so a very well-known name in the industry, to collect this research. And we're now just distilling and analyzing the data points. And so we haven't made this presentation to many external groups, so you're one of the first, right? To show what did we learn in terms of the student perspectives, faculty perspectives, and practitioner perspectives. How do we start to mold those and then come together and close the gaps to make sure that our next generation is equipped to be as successful as possible, right? And so when you look back about 30 years ago, there was a report informally known as the Boyer Report, but more formally known as Building Community, A New Future for Architectural Education and Practice. And back then it was commissioned by the 5 alliance partners in the architecture industry. And what that research did 30 years ago was lay out a guide to how architectural education and practice could work together to ensure the future success of architects that are coming into the profession. And so looking like 30 years, thinking about how much the profession has changed in 30 years, what would happen if we started asking those same questions and what could we learn? So that's where we are today here. And one of the key conclusions that we have seen, again, is that we think structured mentoring is an ingredient in this entire recipe. So it's not the only answer, but it's one of the ingredients in the kitchen cabinet that we should be tapping into to start to answer the questions that come out of this report here. So I'll get right into it here. We both had qualitative research instruments and quantitative research instruments. And if we start on the qualitative side, we had about 107 interviews through all three audiences, of which about half came from students, and then the remainder came from faculty and practitioners. You'll see here that we talked to both NAB schools, community colleges, non-NAB folks, and we wanted to cast a wide net to try to get the most comprehensive data sets that we could. On the quantitative side, we went through 3 surveys in which we garnered almost about 4,000 responses, of which you see how the numbers break out here. Roughly 2/3 were from the practice side, and then nearly, a 60-40 split, if you will, between faculty and students. And so we felt really good about the holistic and comprehensive nature of the responses that we're able to get. So we feel like this is going to set a great roadmap, and it's going to be in tune and in touch with the 3 audiences that help shape the future of the profession. So as we started to distill this information, there are 4 key findings I'll just touch on today, just for the sake of time. But the first is pathways to architecture. Second is architectural education. How does that look both from a practice and innovation standpoint? Social change, and then collaboration, right, between academia and the firms, which tends to happen already, but there's some more insights around how do we move that more from a temporary kind of mechanism like career fairs to something that's more institutionalized. So let's start first with the pathways to architecture. And for each one of those 4, I'm just going to share some of the things that bubbled up that might inform the conversation that we have today. So when we look at pathways to architecture, we see that one, the pathways for my generation and many of the folks on this line is starkly different than the next generation. Media is the way that folks are really learning and gaining interest into the profession in today's time. And then there's also a lack of understanding around architecture program requirements, and which is serving as an impediment that's been identified by our incoming students here. And so respondents, as we started to distill the information, respondents, they traced the initial interest, as I was sharing, to media, building visits, and high school programs. And if we just kind of pause and think for a second, like, how did we learn about it as we were growing up? It was likely probably a STEM camp during the summer that our parents enrolled us in. Maybe an architect came to school on a career day and we had a session about it. But, and today it's media. And think about the difference, right? Kids that are coming in now, I should say kids, but the young professionals that are coming in now, when they're born, there's almost an iPad in their hand immediately, right? And you can see how that starts to influence interest and how they are responding to different things that are coming their way in terms of what do I want to be when I grow up. One student actually shared that it was an Instagram post from Zahid Adi's work that sparked their interest, right, in the profession. That was one of the sentiments that we had received. In our interviews, I would also say that student participants discussed barriers in greater detail, sharing that geography, right? And I think that emphasizes the importance of the community college as on the path to architecture. So geography was a major impediment, as well as having sufficient information about the admissions processes, right? Every school has something slightly different, including the application and portfolio requirements. In fact, I would say nearly half of student interview participants highlighted the portfolio as a major barrier to applying to architecture programs. The students described not having enough information, lack of clarity regarding what's expected. Most frustration came from the different portfolio requirements based off of the school that they wanted to apply to. 47% of students responded that the lack of information was the key reason for them not knowing how to navigate the process. And I'll just highlight that from the community college perspective, that number was about 60%. Some student interview participants raised the fact that I don't know the difference between a NAB accredited school and a non-NAB accredited school. If you think about not knowing that difference, how expensive that mistake could be, both financially and from the perspective of time. To me, this just screams the necessity for mentorship and the need to connect our seasoned practitioners with those who are freshly coming into the profession. What I'll say about affordability in the far right-hand corner, those who are seasoned veterans, we know that college tuition is an issue, right? I think for students, the reason why that number is so low, because for students, they likely believe that all colleges are expensive, right? And so it's almost par for the course. That's what they know. College is expensive. And so whether or not they're going to study architecture or not, the cost of college has no bearing on that, right? And so I thought that was an interesting tidbit as well. I want to move us forward into architectural education and practice, which pointed to two distinct outcomes. Students and professionals would like inclusion of more technical skills in architectural education. And we see, and barriers or impediments to practice are both structural and cultural. So what this slide tells you is that students want everything, right? That's indicated by the blue bar. And so if you put it out there, students want to consume it. The greatest alignment between professionals, faculty, and students in particular is around building technology and construction, right? And with technical skills should be emphasized in academic programs. After that, you can see there's varied perspectives, right, amongst the three groups. I want to highlight those two. However, the greatest discrepancy is in teaching of soft skills, right? And so when you look here, academia thinks that's very important, that and climate change. But practitioners, if you look at the bars, they're in the 30s, climate change is 25%. What that tells us is that practitioners feel like they're equipped to teach that to the incoming generations. I wanted to flag that piece. And I think a reason for that is that oftentimes firm culture and your own unique design pedagogy will shape how you might teach an incoming student or emerging professional in those spaces there. So I thought that was very interesting. Now let's look at perceived barriers. Most students see compensation and the ability to find a job as the biggest barrier. Practitioners certainly do agree, but both faculty and professionals agree that the culture of the profession is a notable impediment. Students rate culture pretty low, right? And I think that's pretty easy to explain. They don't know what they don't know. They haven't spent much time in a firm. But how important, as we reflect on this data, how important would mentorship be in helping students navigate the job market, helping students negotiate their own compensation when they get that first offer? How important would mentorship be in terms of coaching students how to ask the right questions in an interview about firm culture? So we're starting to get these real rich data sets as we start to analyze the information. And it's really similar to social change, where we see that students see a strong role of architecture and climate action and sustainability, but faculty, and even though faculty and professionals agree, faculty place more emphasis, if you will, on climate action, while professionals also highlight health and sustainability broadly. The barriers to address social change include leadership support and financial resources, which I don't think is much of a surprise. So as you look at the data here, it kind of just reinforces what I was just sharing. Those first three bars, health, climate change, and sustainability, all are ranking pretty high, right? Stark difference around climate action. Let me go back. I'm sorry. Stark difference around EDI, human rights, and social justice. I want you to just pause and take a look, right? The first three bars, which are wide and sprawling, and then we get to EDI and social issues, it contracts pretty greatly. And as we ask ourselves, why do we think that is? We see here that there is a desire to, we see here that the complexity of the topic, particularly in academia, right? The complexity of social justice and climate action is a barrier. So maybe folks aren't feeling equipped to be able to teach this so it's integrated holistically into the practice of architecture. As you move into the practice side, and as we start to look at EDI, social justice issues, there's a couple of things there. In social justice, we see leadership support is the main thing. So if your leaders believe in it, there's a good chance that we can teach that and practice that in the firm. What we see around climate action, which I thought was a little surprising, is more around finance, right? Like our clients aren't paying for it. I don't have the money for professional development in that space, right? So that was something that I learned and found very intriguing here. And as I move into the last space around collaboration, just touching on some of the things that I said at the very beginning of the profession, we've always collaborated, but there is a desire to enrich that and moving more from what I would call temporary moments of collaboration to something that's more systemic and institutionalized. And of course, we need more time and we need more money. And so just to bring us to the end, just wrapping up here, there were 4 key recommendations that I wanted to share today. So increasing opportunities for students, that was the #1 recommendation as I ranked them. 2 was improving access to and affordability of architectural education. 3 is strengthening collaboration amongst our universities, the firms, and our associations, right? And then lastly was eliminating barriers to entering and succeeding in the profession. And I do think as we look at structured mentoring programs, I can't think of a better one than ACE Mentors of America. And that's why we've invited them to share about what they do, and in particular, the Transformative Partners Program, which is geared to integrate practice with those in college, right, in a mentoring relationship through all 4, 5, or 6 years of college, and then help with job placement, right? So it's that safety net that goes from cradle to grave, from high school through college, and they get placed in jobs. And so with that, I'm going to stop my share, and I will turn it over to Diana, and then we can open up for Q&A. So thank you.
Thank you. Let me figure out how to share right there. So thank you, and I'm thrilled to be here to just tell you a little bit about the ACE Mentor Program of America. Our goal is to enlighten high school students about the construction industry with a focus on both college-bound and trades-bound students. And we really showcase the entire industry in hopes that the student really identifies with a particular path, gets them excited, and then they ultimately go into post-secondary education in order to come into our workforce. And our goal is really to build a large, diverse, better prepared workforce for the firms in the industry. We do prioritize underrepresented students, and that's why I was excited about this opportunity. Many of our students are looking at community college, the 2-year path to ultimately achieve their goals. We are all over the country, and I just wanted to sort of share, because I know many of you are from different parts of the country, but we have over 70 affiliates in 36 states, and the individual affiliates are where the rubber hits the road. It's where the students are recruited, the mentors are recruited, the teams are put together, and I'll talk in a minute about why all of you should look to get in touch with our local affiliates. I'm not sure if you can, there we go. That's what I was trying to do. So the ACE Mentor Program is 30 years old. We've been around for 30 years. And we right now are reaching about over 14,000 high school students from approximately 1,500 high schools throughout the country. And we have over 5,000 industry professionals who volunteered their time to mentor both in the high school program and in the post-secondary. Of our students, 70% of our students identify as a person of color and 40% identify as a woman. So it is a population that our industry needs. And our focus is really inner city, under-resourced schools, and trying to really give them the opportunity to learn a career path within our industry. The students are met with during the school year, and then we give them also opportunities for summer experiences. We've had over 700 students last summer be engaged in a paid externship with one of our firms. Our goal this year is 800 students, and they are paid. Most of our population of students just can't afford to do an unpaid opportunity during the summer. And then over 6,800 students have participated in Trades Days events. And those are events throughout the country that really focus on the trades and showcasing what the trades is all about. As you all know, some students just aren't meant to go to college. And so we want to make sure that they understand their options. There's really three pieces of the program. The first program is the high school programming. This is where the students are met with the professionals, and the beginning of the program is really showcasing what an architect does. What is a landscape architect? What are the need? What are your skill needs to be an architect? We do field trips. We make sure every student goes to a live construction site. As I said, we do summer externships, and then we have national competitions where the students can really do a project. And if they're a student that's excited about architecture, they're going to focus on the architecture, the design part of that project. Then, as you know, to become an architect, you have to go to post-secondary education. And what we have found is many of our students are scared of that. 41% of them are first gen. And the idea of a private university or even a public 4-year or 5-year university, when they look at the financials, it scares them, and it's intimidating. Many of our students are looking at 2-year and then going on to, I'm from Philadelphia, and there is a great program here between the Community College of Philadelphia and Jefferson University for architecture. And we've seen many of our students start at CCP and then move on. But while they're in college, we give them scholarships. We've given over $37 million worth of scholarships. What we've seen some of our students do is bank some of that money if they go to a community college, so that they can go for 2 years to the community college and then ultimately go to the private university. And I'm going to talk about transformative partners in a minute, but we also help all of our alumni with internships, figuring out, making sure they have a resume, how to find an internship. And we also have a job board for both internships and entry level. Because really what our goal is this yellow box, which is we want to get as many of our 14,000 students to come into the workforce as full-time employees in the construction industry. And then, of course, we hope they become ACE mentors and ACE board members. So, as I said, 41% of our students are first generation and $37 million of scholarship. And what we realize is when you look at our population of it being first gen, being from under-resourced schools, from being from families that cannot afford the traditional college experience, and the fact that a lot of our students get into the college or university and start to struggle, we put together a program called Transformative Partners. And it came from students that really enjoyed having the mentorship of a professional during their high school, really wanted mentorship during their post-secondary. So now all of our students are able, who have graduated, are able to sign up, and they can have a mentor throughout their post-secondary education. And this is also important to all of you, the educators, is because your students are going to have contacts with firms, local professionals that can actually help you build your network as well. And these mentors are here to help the students any way they need to, any way they can, but it's a great resource for the schools as well. And then again, the internship support through Job Board and all of our partners. This is just, we're going to send you the the slide. This is a very easy QR code where anyone can scan it and sign up to be a mentor for our post-secondary mentor. And it's also where students can go. So if you have students that are ACE alumni and they've not heard about the Transformative Partners, this is a great resource for you to send them to so that they can sign up for mentorship. It's projected, we did a whole big study. We projected that over 1,000 ACE alumni a year enter our industry, and you will see that about 20% of them are architecture and planning. That percentage, it changes each year. Some years engineering is less and architecture is more. And sometimes it's this one that you're seeing. But what we really want to do is that make sure that the student makes a really good decision, an educated decision as to what they want their career path, ultimately their major to be, so that we don't have students entering into engineering or architect and after a year saying, this is not what I thought, and changing their majors. We also want them to be successful and be able to achieve their goal of a degree. And we're going to do everything in our power to help them. So why should all of you get involved? As I said, there are over 70 affiliates across the country. And most of our affiliates are always looking for the places to host student meetings, host their events. If you host an event, most times they will allow you to do a little plug about your school. It's also a great place for you to meet freshmen through senior in high school. You can participate on a local board. This is a piece that Corey and I talked about. We have been successful in having some, but we have given $37 million worth of scholarships. We have a few schools, a few community colleges around the country that have basically said, if you give the student a scholarship, we will match it. And we have a wonderful partnership in Cleveland where if we give $1,500 to the student, the school, the community colleges matches that $1,500. And there's rules around it about how many students we can do and what the maximum is. But what it has done is it has really given students an opportunity to look at this particular community college, and it's given them a really big incentive to consider going to that school. And then market your school to the students is a great way. You can come to different events, and a lot of our affiliates have nights where different colleges come in. And then lastly, the message that we would love is there's two things that we would love for you to remember. Is that our students are looking for the opportunity to get their 5-year degree in the most financially conservative way possible. And as I said, in Philadelphia, we have this great partnership with Community College and Jefferson. Is if there is a partnership in your particular city, make sure we know about it, because this is where a lot of our kids are looking. They're looking at, can I start a community college and then ultimately go and get my full degree? And then if you match scholarships, it gives them even more incentive to look at your school. Yeah. This is my email. I'm happy to talk to anyone. I can introduce you to the local affiliates. But I really just want to do a very quick overview, and now happy to answer any questions.
Diana, this is amazing. I just jumped on the San Diego chapter, and I just realized I'm looking at your website here that it says ACE mentors annually 9,000 students and 1,000 high school students in the surrounding area. So we're definitely going to be reaching out in San Diego to help build that pipeline from the high schools to our colleges, from our college to our university partners.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Her name is Gita. Just reach out, and she would love to talk to you. Anyone else? Well, we're going to share. I'm going to share the presentation.
One more.
Oh,
one more. Sorry, this is Dwayne with San Antonio College in Texas. I just also wanted to point out we've had we have annually an ACE mentor, ACE night, ACE college night. So all of those ACE students in San Antonio are bussed in. They all come, we give them a big welcome, and then our AIAS student club walks all of those students through studios, introduces them, and actually exchanges numbers, so they become mentors at that time, a current student with the ACE students. It's been incredible. It used to be only UTSA, a university system across the way from us, but we got involved about 8 years ago, and it's really been a strong pipeline now. Directly, we're able to identify from day one who the ACE students were, what their experience is. And one of the things you talk about are the competitions that they do. They do incredible collaborative projects that are juried by local professionals. It's an incredible program. So commend you on this over this more than almost 2 decades. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Corey, I don't know if you saw, there's a question about AIA firms opening their doors to associate degrees.
I didn't see that question.
Okay,
Where-
I'll read
where's
it.
it again?
It says, it would help for AIA to promote this to AIA member firms to begin to change this standard and make it more equitable. It's in the chat.
Oh, okay. Yeah, thank you for that. I'm still looking for it, but I guess is there a question there? Just what are we
Yeah,
doing?
the question
or-
is that it seems like many firms will not open the door to candidates that only have an associate's degree.
Gotcha. And I think that's something that I think it's just a cultural thing from firm to firm. What I will say is that I noticed that some states are advocating for more, what I would say, alternative ways or additional ways. So I'm in the state of Virginia, and I do know that in the recent General Assembly, the AIA sponsored a bill and they passed it actually successfully to ask the state licensing board to evaluate additional ways, if you will, to satisfy the education requirement. And so maybe it just depends on where you are in the country, but I do know that there are pockets where some folks are actually working in the legislature to provide that culture, if you will, across the board. So I hope that's something of encouragement for you.
And I did see Steve Cannon. Sorry we took Jack Whalen away from you, but we're very excited. Jack Whalen is an ACE student, went to Jefferson University, became an architect, got very involved in NACARB and AIA, and was actually teaching, I guess, at the school that Steve Cannon is at, and we just hired him to be a national staff member. Any other? I see another question in the chat. Is being involved in the AI keeps your school on the radar? Even better if you're on the board, but schools do not want to pay for it. So important. It has always allowed CCP to be at the table with the AIA. So CCP, I gave you a shout out.
Hey, Diana, would you mind talking a
you.
little bit? Oh, sorry. Is there somebody coming in?
I was just saying thank you.
Oh, no, it's been such an honor.
Betsy, I think that was Betsy who just said that from CCP. Did you want to say anything about the relationship with Jefferson?
With Jefferson.
I'm sorry, with yeah.
AIA?
No, the CCP go, and then your students going to, it used to be Philly
U. Oh,
Philly U, and now it's
okay. And so John Dwyer is on the board still, I believe, here, CCCAP. He's in transit right now, coming back from Boston. But a lot of our students do transfer to Jefferson. And I have to say they are very, very good at Jefferson about working individually with each student to place them at exactly the right level. And they review not only their transcript and their application, but they review their portfolios. Our students also transferred to Drexel and occasionally to Temple. They're not so friendly to us. So, you know,
They're not friendly to us either.
yeah,
but
I taught there for a long time, so I don't understand what's going on.
But we do talk to a lot of our Philadelphia school districts students about this arrangement of being able to go to CCP first.
Oh, that's good. That's good. But I just wanted to also emphasize how important it is for faculty members to be involved in the AIA. I mean, you know, if no one's doing it, you kind of don't notice. But when you do it, you realize how important those connections are. And I know that my time on the Philadelphia and Pennsylvania boards really made a difference because it made community colleges, gave us a place at the table. And so now when something happens like an exhibition or a conference that involves the schools, we get invited, we're at the table. So I know it's hard because schools don't want to pay for that membership, but I just would encourage you to shell out the money and make sure that somebody in your department is participating. I think Philip Jefferson would agree with me on that.
I do. I think it's really important to make sure that our AIA members are also part of our faculties. And I think because of my membership and my board role for a number of years with our AI Triangle component here in North Carolina, that created our AI Triangle Scholarship for Wake Tech. They provided scholarships for NC State students for a number of years, and then as my time on the board, our president at the time created our Wake Tech Scholarship, and so now our students are in front of the AI at design awards and fall meetings, so they see that student work. So it's definitely important, I think, to have that connection, even if you find a way to create a type of ex officio role on the board that your college has a voice, even if it's not a voting voice, but it's a voice that you can participate in the board meetings, that you're there to give feedback about your programs and your needs. I do think it's really important for AIA to find a way to make it very well known that the associate's degree level is a degree of skill that provides a need and support for our design firms. I cannot tell you how many times I have some of the larger firms that just the application or submission of one of our students' resumes on their HR sites, because of the way they write these algorithms now, because they say associate's degree, their names don't get sent in the portal. And so you have to go through this back door of, talk to this one principal that can talk to their HR to put your name into the queue. It should not have to be so difficult. And so I think AIA really does need to step up and make that aware to our membership that we recognize the degree levels from the community colleges all the way up to the master's degrees that provide support. All of my students and alumni that are working in design firms, I get nothing but great feedback of their skill and their work. So why are we not establishing that this is a criteria and a necessary criteria in our base level of work opportunities to make this fully equitable? Not all firms do that, but there are a large number of them, especially the large ones, that just don't even look at our students. And so they get sent into kind of the drafting role only, or they have to work in the engineering side of the firm, and they're coming in with the design skills. So we worked really hard here in the AI Triangle to make that recognized, but there's still work to do even on our side. So I think it's something that we should be working on collaboratively through our programs and our in our AIA roles.
Hey, Phil, thank you so much for that feedback. Diana, would you mind just sharing a little bit and more granularity around transformative partners? I think that is one of the ways that it starts to speak to what you're sharing, Philip, is forming that social capital while they're in college with folks so they can get to expand their network. And then when you come out of there, good people know good people, always say that, right? And they can help you get placed in different jobs coming thereafter. So I was wondering, Diane, would you mind sharing a little bit more granularity around transformative partners, which was
Yeah.
geared for that?
Yeah, so the transformative partners is the post-secondary. And we are heavily recruiting architects because we have quite a lot of architectural students in college right now. And it's really, we have our mentors. The students can tell us, I want someone who went to the same school, or I want someone in the same city, or I want a woman, I want a Hispanic woman. They can really sort of pick who they want to help them through. But what we have found is many of our students that are alumni of our program, while they thought they were prepared, they weren't as prepared as they could have been for college. And it's not just from the perspective of curriculum and but it was also things like, I need a new laptop and I don't have the money, and what can I do? Or so I had a student who was a landscape architect, who is a landscape architect student at Temple, and she had to move off campus. She wasn't guaranteed campus housing, and she kind of didn't even know where to start. And she had two other roommates that they didn't even know where to start. So she kind of called me in a panic saying, my mother lives in New York. She doesn't know what to help. And I actually went down and helped her a little bit. So the students, there's so much that these students need. And I know a lot of the colleges, the community colleges and the four-year colleges are trying to do as much as they can to help these students succeed. But this is just one more piece. This is just one more professional to help those students. We've seen a lot of schools do mentoring programs, and we've actually worked with some colleges and universities of, here's our mentoring program. Let's package this together so the student and ACE alumni can have the best of both worlds. Your mentoring program, our mentoring program. But we found that with 41% of our students being first gen, we have a lot of students that parents, English is not their first language. And they really struggle, and they're looking for additional role models and guidance. And there's over 200 students. We just started this program. We've got 200 students matched so far. It's over 200, it's about 270. We're trying to add another 300. But we really just want to give our alumni every tool that we can give them for them to be successful in accomplishing their goal of a degree.
Thank you. Thank you all very much. We appreciate your presentation. I'm going to go ahead and transition this to our ending comments, and then we'll follow up with break rooms, and I'll let Joe explain what we're doing with that.
All right, thank you, Emmanuel. All right, can everybody see my screen? That was super informative. Corey, Diana, thank you so much. Let me just kind of have a few closing remarks, and then we'll kind of transition to some breakout rooms. First off, I got to say a big thanks to Beth over at the BAC. We really appreciate your time and effort. At NCARB, Jared, Josh, and Ed, thank you very much for your time. Your information regarding the IPAL and the competencies are going to help us shape a lot of the decisions that we're going to make in the future. The 52 workforce readiness components helped me shape a lot of things currently in my own program. For the AIA, Corey and Rose, thank you so much for your time. Of course, Diana, Ace, thank you. I really appreciate that information. I know our San Diego chapter, I'll be reaching out to them shortly. Of course, to our design committee members, Jane, Betsy, and Christine, it's an amazing amount of work you've done all year, and the students' work really reflects that. So my hat's off to you for coordinating that, and we're going to need some additional people to support that. Of course, to our board, thank you so much for your transition to this Zoom platform, and of course, opening this up to a free environment for everybody. A big thank you to that for making that decision. So we've got a nice attendance here today. Of course, our founder, Randy. Randy always says you got to be in the room to make things happen. A big thank you to Randy. We are in the room virtually, and we're making things happen, hopefully. And of course, our reporter in Boston on the fly, Emmanuel, a big clap to you. Thank you for being out there and braving that tough Boston weather. So I really do appreciate everything. Just want to reiterate, please reach out to your student bodies. We would love to have them involved. This year, we're really going to push for your students to be part of our coalition. We really think that this is their first stepping stone of them being part of an organization, that they're going to lead on to the AIA and SARA and NCARB and to other organizations. So utilize this coalition as that first springboard as they launch into future opportunities. Of course, I got to make one more plea. I know you're out there, I know you're busy, but your time is extremely valuable. But I do really could use your help. We're looking for additional board members as we cycle through. We're looking for additional committee members as some of us tend to retire. Regional leads, as I mentioned, as we start to mirror those NCARB regions, we want to have our teams mirror that so we can support that workforce readiness component and get our young students into those firms. And of course, our student members. So reach out to your students and see if this is something they would like to join as well. So a little bit about our breakout rooms. One of the nice things I've always liked about a conference is just the flexibility of talking to people. Thank you, Josh and Jared, for hanging out. They'll be sitting in a breakout session so you can pick their brains about the IPAL or the 16 competencies or what Jared's going to be doing on his summer vacation if he gets one. You can certainly jump in there and talk to them. I'll be in the CCCAP Coalition breakout room. If you'd like to talk to me, find out how you can be involved, by all means, jump in there. I'll be there listening to anything that you need to say. Of course, we're going to have the AIA open as well. So we're going to have AIA, I think Corey, Rose, if you're out there, if you'll be in that room helping answering any questions, how we can get additional involvement with our students in student chapters. And as I promised too, we are going to have a breakout room for curriculum development. I know a lot of shifting is happening in an academic environment, from the idea of just solely grading to the idea of competencies to SLOs and PLOs, and how do we teach ourselves to become better educators. So we're going to have a curriculum development breakout room as well. Feel free to go into any one of those rooms, cycle through as you will. We'll keep the rooms open as long as there are attendees here. And of course, we'll have a manual here in the main room, kind of helping you, kind of spearhead, moving you around if you have any additional questions. And lastly, all right, we're going to do this again in 2026. All right, you're on my side of the town, so you'll be coming out to San Diego. We'll try to get this in person. I'll try to have some things arranged for us to do, something fun to go look at. If you have any recommendations, I would love to hear from that as well. A big thank you to all of you for being part of our membership and helping us guide the next generations of architectural education. With that, we'll open up the breakout rooms. See you guys soon.
That's good. So Joe, what's your summer plans?
This summer, we're launching our second bite at the teaching firm. So we've got two firms, Silman and HMC. We've got a cohort of 24 students.
Okay.
And as I mentioned before in our presentation, what they'll do is they'll go to Silman on Tuesdays, HMC on Wednesdays for the day. And what we do is we wrote the curriculum for the firm. So the first conversation is themselves, networking. Second is contract negotiations. Third is pay. So what they'll do is every single day, they'll basically engage a professional topic, but hear it from a large firm and a small firm's point of view. We also supplement that with an academic kind of presentation. So now they have the teacher's version, the AIA straight out of the book. This is the contract. Then the small firms, well, we don't use that. We use this, in a big firm's liability and insurance. We do all this through the summer, and then at the end of the summer, what we do is we give them an actual RFP that has been competed for and won by one of the firms. The students break out into small groups. They'll compete for the same RFP, digest all that information, put together a faux team, so to speak, present the work, and then see if they can win the same RFP. Then we actually take them to the actual winning project, and usually they're disappointed because their projects are, no holds bar, off the hook, right?
Yeah,
And the firm has all these other binding mechanisms that they have to attain to.
Yeah, the real world, it's good to always have that contrast between the unlimited world of education and then that real world budget where they're like, yeah, no, we're not doing that.
So that's this summer. It's a full summer, but it's a lot of fun. And our students walk away with, we like to think of it as their 5th studio project, which is the RFP. What's nice too is they have to write their contract. So we'll have the firm's contractual lawyers will look at it and poke holes in it during their presentation. Like, oh yeah, I could sue you here, or you gave me 7 renderings, but you only really needed 1. So what we do is we do this nice play back and forth of, did the students actually commit to something that they didn't plan for,
Yeah, exactly.
So that's the summer.
Cool.
Yeah. Jared, what is your summer looking like at NCARB?
Summers are always busy. I miss my days of teaching, Joe, when I had like summers off, nothing. So for NCARB, it's the end of our fiscal year and it's the start of our new fiscal year. It's always the end of June into July. So our annual business meeting is this end of this month. We just came off of the AI National Conference, so it's pretty busy. And then we host what's called the Licensing Advisor Summit. So people who are licensing advisors, that happens for us in late July. And some, we're trying to get more community college folks there too. So we've got a couple of events that we do both June and July. And then my summer vacation actually happens in August. My wife and I are getting away for a vacation at the August before we roll into September and then are back sort of in our regular committee flow, like you were talking about.
Hey, Ed.
Hey, Emmanuel. Is the meeting over or?
No, well, everybody's in the breakout room. So
okay.
You can join in. So this is a kind of like a free move wherever you want to go. You do have the AIA one, but there's also the CCAP, and we have the NCARB one. And then I don't think you're interested in curriculum, but we also have a curriculum development, and then we have the CCAP one. So you could join whichever one you want to join in.
Okay. Do you put me in the room I choose, or how does that work?
You tell me where you want to go, and I'll take you there.
Let's see. Why don't you put me in the CCAP room? I'll break things up a little since NCARB's already covered by Josh and Jared. So
all right, let me move you there. And then for future reference, if you go down to where it says more on your Zoom, the breakout rooms are down there. But
there we go. It says join breakup room. Okay, there we go.
I'll send you there. I'll send you there.
Thanks.
You should have gotten the notice. You're welcome.
Yeah, thanks.
You're welcome.
Ed O'Neill, did you want to go back into another room? You're muted again.
No, I don't think so. I think I'm done.
You're ready to go home?
Yeah. Can I please go home now? But thank you for all your efforts today.
Oh, you're very welcome. My pleasure. This was a lot of fun.
Okay.
Very informative.
Yeah, certainly.
All right.
Thank you.
So enjoy the rest of your day and the rest of the week, summer, everything.
You too.
All right. Bye-bye.
I guess it's down to us. I'm going to say goodbye, I think.
See you later.
Okay. Well, listen, I'll try to put some things together because, I love doing that.
Good. Well, we appreciate your effort.
And so, well, I hope so. The one thing I would say is I feel like it's really important to make these things easy to get through to in our website. And I think it's A-OK on our website for non-members to be able to see the competition projects.
Yeah.
one of the that on the old website, all of the competitions were on there, and unbeknownst to Randy, we were all using them as a teaching tool. Even if you weren't doing the competition, you know, it was a good resource to go to look at how to put a presentation together and what a board, you know, could look like.
I work really closely with Jeff Robertson. He's my office mate, and so we talk about CCCAP often and all the great things that are happening here. And it's definitely an organization that's grown quite extensively.
So that's why, you know, when we break up into these regional components, which I'm trying to do, we soft launched it last year, but I need to get our regions organized, because what happens is so much information is coming in that I need to be able to push it over to Charlotte and say, all right, there's 4 schools over there that just need a little bit of help with curriculum, or there's a school over here in Texas that needs a little help. You know, it's funny because Ed just jumped in, but we mirrored it because of NCARB's alignment, our region. So then what we think is going to happen is, as construction methodology is faced with climate emergencies,
yes,
the construction methodology in Louisiana is going to change ever so slightly. In California, it's going to be more fire resistant. So I want that workforce readiness component, those regional components, to respond to the need of a ever evolving, you know, building process, right? We're not going to build the same way as they do in Michigan, but Michigan's going to have its own issues in that component.
I love that idea of the regions, because I mean, like NCARB has, you know, we're part of Region 4, so it's a logical kind of group to have together, where we can have conversations about, hey, you transferred to this school, how did you get that to work? And if you're a neighbor of ours, then, you know, how did you, in being able to have those conversations is specific to the schools and the areas that we're in, would be a great help as well. I mean, it's great to have the broad community for sure, but having touches of meeting together as a region would be really great.
That's how NCARB. I'm sorry, the NCARB organizes it at the licensing advisors conference. They organize this by region, right? So I got to be, when I was there at Kansas City, I got to talk to Jefferson and a couple of the colleges, Alfred State in New York, a couple of the other ones in the SUNY system. So they organized this. So it was like Maryland, Delaware, Jersey, Pennsylvania, New York. And so it was very helpful because we could talk about things, and, you know, students don't want to really go so far away unless they're very, very like intent on like, I want to be on the West Coast or I want to be in the South. A lot of them want to be a little bit closer just so they can get back home easily, take a train home or whatever. So that was a great opportunity for us to create some connections and possible, you know, transfer agreements.
Yeah, for sure. Being included in that Region 4 educator symposium that they had was fantastic.
You'll also see which schools are kind of not blackballing, but pushing students out. Like, one of the things I noticed was I wasn't the only problem having problems with Pomona and SLO.
Hi, Betsy.
It really became a regional problem that our counselors were telling our students to go to Pomona and SLO. High school counselors were saying, just go to these 2 schools. So the students would come in, and then all of a sudden we found where the problem really occurred. But because it was that regional dialogue that had to be changed, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So it seems like, Charlotte, you're going to be the regional head, right? That's the plan. I heard that, right? I heard that, Andy. I heard that.
I heard that.
Yeah, well, part of
the future president of NCARB has now blessed this. This is definitely going to happen.
There we go. Part of why the virtual meeting worked so well for me is I have a high schooler who was just graduated. So,
congratulations!
Congratulations!
Very exciting.
The timing of the AIA being at the first part of June was
not ideal for us parents who have kids graduating.
But
my
now I'm down one.
Yeah.
Yeah, fantastic.
Well, very good.
Charlotte, one thing NCARB is going to be doing is looking at, we're going to use Region 4's educator symposium as a model that we're hoping other regions might adopt in the future for their regions.
Yeah,
it's so successful.
It was great.
Impressive.
Yep.
Yeah. I didn't get to attend, but I got a a report out on it from Jill at the Region 4 chair.
Yeah, it was interesting to see the dialogue that was occurring at different levels and where people saw themselves, especially as these new competencies are coming out too. It was very, very interesting. So thank you again for including the community colleges in that. It was fantastic.
We're glad to do it, definitely.
It's the way to go. I mean, I'm really rooted in competency-based education, mastery, getting away from the, qualitative assessment of students and more focused in competency based. And I think this is the way to do it. Now, if we can get everyone on board, that would be fantastic, sooner rather than later.
Yeah.
And quickly. So yeah, I think that I'm excited to see how this is gonna change our profession, change our how we educate the future architects and designers of the world.
Yeah. And the tough task we have is changing the minds of those who see this as a threat to education to an opportunity in education.
Correct.
Yeah.
You were reading between the lines there, Ed.
Yeah. I think I teach a construction management program, and we've got architecture, a school at Tarrant County College. And what you may guys want to look at as a kind of a background, we are accredited by the American Council for Construction Education. And they use what we call them student learning outcomes, but basically they're the competencies that we have to meet for our program. And the 2-year programs have like 15. That what they want to see is a construction manager must know these things and have done this before they go out and work. And then the 4-year colleges have additional ones that they have to meet for their bachelor's and their master's programs a little bit more. So it's a nice, I like the competencies, these 16 competencies, and where we can, and I'll propose it for our school, for our architecture group, to say, hey, let's meet these items. Let's use these as their student learning outcomes. The times that we need to say, okay, and the ACC doesn't dictate how we teach it. It's just that we have to teach it. And I think that's what we need to do, is say, these are the minimums. Yeah. We can teach more, any more we want to, but these are the minimums. And we do set the competency level to say, hey, you've got to meet this to make sure before we will give, and that's how we grade. Our grades are based off these competencies, and if they don't meet them, then we say, hey, sorry, you're going to take the course again.
Yeah. Wow. Awesome. And what was that accrediting body again?
It's American Council for Construction Education, ACCE.
Council for Construction. Okay. I'm just making a couple notes.
They are nationwide. They're an accredited firm, and they're now accrediting trade programs too, but that was their first gold. And I think we've got 3 or 4 community colleges in Texas that are accredited by them. And and I find, as I said, there's a couple schools. So University of Oklahoma is their construction management's accredited by them, and they're in their architecture school. And then Texas A&M is also accredited by them for their construction management, but it's a separate item from the architecture. But it's something that said it was a good guide. And I think I like the competencies that NCARB is proposing, because that's a guide now. We can say, okay, now this is what we need to do. This is where the students need to focus, and the schools need to focus on these competencies to make sure you can teach design, making sure, and it's covering everything an architect needs to do. Being, as I said, I've got 27 state licenses, and I've been licensed for over 40 years now. So it's nice to see. I wish that I had this when I was in school over 40 years ago. But yeah, it's nice to see this happening.
Well, Emmanuel, I think that's our time.
All right.
I can't believe it. I can't believe another
We did
conference
great.
is coming on.
Yeah.
It's cool.
You had 40, 46, 47 attendees.
Oh, wonderful.
Successful. And just a few minor hiccups every now and here and there, but nothing to keel over for. So anyway.
Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all for
Thank you
joining
all.
us.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Everyone's earned a beer.
I
Amanda, you earned two.
get to go to another meeting.
Next one. We'll see you soon.
All
See you all
right.
soon. Thank you.
Good job, buddy.
All right, Joe, we did it.
Holy
Thank
crap,
you.
that was a long day.
You guys did a good job.
Yeah, it has been a long day. I haven't moved from this chair.